Yo, 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 welcome to Team RaddTitan, and today we're getting on with a weekly collectors chat. This is chat number 308. If you don't know already, I'm George or Gio. That who's a bit more trimmed today. Top left is Alex. We are being joined today by the fabulous team at Tweeterhead. So on the top right, we have David Igo, the creative director, and the gentleman who's just dropped his phone is Chad Colbank, the owner, founder of Tweeterhead. He's been proper top draw since I've been on for the last 10 minutes talking. So hopefully we'll get him back in a minute.
Yeah, I'm almost back. 20 minutes of technical difficulties. It's like we're starting. He's like phone down.
I know, man. I'm sorry.
Anyway, we're joined with the Tweeterheads family team. So they're going to be fielding your questions, sharing some stuff. We're going to be having a chat just to let you all realize, we are not. It's a hobby channel, and we're going to be running through things, just keeping it relaxed and talking. It's not like a full-on sort of interview, and it all has to be sort of like really, really stringent and strict. So it's going to be a bit of a free-for-all. So if you've got any questions, by all means, put them into the chat, and we'll crack on with that. Do you want to say a massive shout out to Tweeterhead for being on here? David Igo, I'm a huge fan. I've had lots of his work throughout the years, so big fan of him. Mad love for you, bro. And this is my first actual chat speaking with Chad Colbank, so I'm really excited to get that going, because I've seen you on a couple of other chats, man, so thanks for coming on to ours finally.
Yeah, no worries at all. Thanks for putting up with my technical difficulties.
No,
I need to create like a little please stand by beep like thing that goes up.
It would be on all the time for you, though. That's the problem.
It would. I just wear it like a mask. Please stand by. But no, this is great. This is fantastic.
Yeah, I know I've been talking with you guys both, Alex and Gia, about coming on eventually. It's always been like weird timing or whatever. And finally, I was like, Chad, we gotta, they hit me up again. Let's do it. And Chad was all on board. So I'm excited finally. I mean, I've talked to you guys a bunch, but like it's fun to actually do it more on the channel,
Exactly.
It's good.
Yeah,
it's good for you to finally come on. And yeah, finally, it's way overdue, but we got there in the end.
It's actually probably
we're just
timing wise though, with like everything we've been through and where we're at now. So it's actually probably all for the best. We have we're in a better spot than we've been, and we have more stuff to talk about. So I think it all worked out, guys.
Yeah, I think it's perfect timing. Like David said, we're kind of revving up. We've talked about it internally, but with the way the market is slightly, we just have kind of cooled our jets a little bit just to see how things are going. And, gives us way more time to be creative, get stuff in the hopper ready to go. But, it's, I think this is perfect timing.
Yeah.
How do you feel at the moment about sort of how that's a really great way to start? How do you feel like the current market is for yourselves?
It's funny, Dave can attest to me being like a total nervous wreck like this time last year, or even up to like 8 months ago. But then right now I'm kind of enjoying it. It's like it's okay to slow down a little bit, right? Let everybody catch their breath. We get to focus on what we're doing. Focus on new stuff. But personally, I'll tell you, and this was before Dave came on board, I was at Comic-Con a couple years ago and realized I was just pumping product out like just so much stuff and getting really overwhelmed. And that was when I'm like, I need to take a 6-month break, get caught up, and pivot. But yeah, I think this whole, what we've lived through with COVID, when, things were bonkers during COVID, as far as like sales, etc., then things slowed down a little. I think it's just, the pendulum swings, right? We're just swinging in a slow period now, but I feel like it's already picking back up. So I think in the market, the same way it is in like kind of every aspect of our life, things are going to go back and forth.
Yep.
I just want to say a quick thing to George there. I saw how hard that was for you when Chad said pivot, not to do the Ross thing. I thought
it really was hard. I was literally biting my lips to not start Rossing.
I saw you.
I was thinking about it.
Is that like a Friends thing? Is that
I was just gonna. Is that Friends?
Yeah,
what is it?
Friends, where they're moving the sofa and he keeps saying pivot.
I finally saw all of Friends for the first time with Kelly. Like last year, we're just knocking a couple episodes out a day during lunch and that evening. I finally got through all of it. So when you said the moving the couch pivot, I'm like, oh, I remember now. So I can be part of the discussion of anything Friends. Finally.
I've got to say, I got your Skeletor in, and I opened it up this week, man, and have to say, I was like, I had the Merman in, I got the Trapjaw in that you made, so I'm a big fan, obviously, of what you've been doing. But obviously, David, I had the original Skeletor that you had something to do with at Sideshow as well. So, I was a bit like, are they going to get anywhere near it? Is it going to be like a bad showing,
Yeah. No, there is definitely pressure for that. I also literally right behind my laptop, I have the old NECA 2000X Skeletor statue, which I consider also up there, that I have the trap jaw from NECA as well. And I love those things. And Chad and I talked about, not to dive too much into that specifically, but anytime I work on our new trap jaw, our new Skeletor, whatever, I want to make sure if people have the original or have another one, they can all kind of oh, they're back to back. Oh, this one has a different attitude than that one. So it's not replacing it or anything. It's try to get a different feel and visual out of it while still making them feel like they belong in the same universe. So it's really meaningful when people appreciate, because there's a lot of pressure. It's Skeletor is the big bad of MOTU, get him right. And Chad had some very specific ideas because he's he loves them that much. He's all right, I really because I didn't know exactly what I want to do with him yet. And Chad had some ideas. He had one great thing when you talked about the base Geo in your review. That was Chad's idea, was to get a throne room type feel to it, where it's
definitely
a bit more elevated,
very, very well
and stuff. Yeah, so that was Chad.
And the elevation is genius. Just lifting him just ever slightly. It's not a massive amount, but it's like an inch. It's such a simple little inch. But believe me, it went a long way. And when you put him sort of in there, my wife doesn't really know the characters at all. She was My Little Pony at that era. So we were all, us boys would do whacking each other with plastic swords, and they had a totally different game going on. But when she's seen them together, she was like, all right, so he's the one that's in charge. He's the boss then. He's and that's a great thing to be able to get that from somebody who's not educated. One of my favorite things is if I get a repair guy in, or Virgin media guy in, or someone to fix the internet or something. I love letting them look around my room and seeing how they react to different things, getting that fresh perspective. Maybe they don't have any of the references or anything. So I really enjoy that sort of things, just getting that sort of virgin pair of eyes on it, rather than your sort of conflicted.
That can backfire.
And I'll tell you something, I'm going to say it now, that Skeletor, it's a huge step up in quality, I feel. I remember with Connecticut's that, we had loads of their stuff in, and then when they released it to Terry Bogard, I felt that they'd sort of gone up a gear with that particular piece. And always thought that your Masters line is very, very strong anyway. But with the Skeletor itself, man, honestly, it really is an absolutely spectacular piece of work. I got in the Thanos from Legendary Beasts. It's a one-of-a-kind piece. It's been it's an amazing experience I've been going through over the last week. And I really thought everything was going to be hitting a downslope now. It's a bit I'm just not going to feel great. Nothing's going to get anywhere near this. And Skeletor's the next one in. So you're oh my God, I don't want it for this. This is a bad, I'm really excited about this one. And then when I opened it, all them feelings just came flooding in. So I was thank God, it's all good. Everything's still good. So thanks very much for that, gentlemen, because the work that you put into that is crazy good. Very, very happy with it. So
cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think with the base, I just always for me and Skeletor, I always think he's always up there postulating and rambling on, and he needs some kind of altar to be up at. And just the way that Dave designed it, it really does look like he's stepping up, to just let everybody have it,
Yeah. Calling people boobs and all that kind of jazz.
Yeah, we're really closely with Amilcar Fong, who is working on the piece. He worked on the 1-to-1 bus with us. So it was very back and forth. He would try something, I'd give him some notes, and he would send me a cool idea. And we got there, and even we got in the top back of the base, Geo, I don't know if you noticed, there's on the surface, there's this weird bone structures capes kind of covering. That was supposed to be a nod to the throne behind him. So one day, Chad and I talked about we'd love to do a proper Legends like Skeletor on throne, but that's like, you know, probably a couple years off but it's on the
you reckon you can get the do you reckon you can get the Keldor portrait in there?
I think that's one where it would make sense to do Keldor. It's always weird, like with Keldor, it's like, do you keep Skeletor's clawed feet and Keldor has clawed feet, or do you go for the boot? It's like one of those, like, what do you do exactly?
Yeah,
so it's kind of tricky, and I know a lot of people love.
I actually thought that skeleton part on the base was to do with the structure, though. I thought it maybe was to help the cape, because that's where it sits. So I thought it was maybe. I thought it was maybe
more on the base. That thing wasn't there, so that thing was a detail they just wanted as like, oh, there's more to this scene.
Awesome.
You know, yeah. So
yeah, see, that's why it's so great to have people like, you know, like having the masters that are behind the scene, because you get that information. Because I would assume that it was to sort of keep the base to keep the cape ever so slightly elevated, just a touch off.
Yeah.
But obviously now I get it. It's a whole part of a different structure, so that's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm very happy with it, man. I really think you smashed it there, and I'm very excited to see where you go, especially with like He-Man and the next bit of that. And obviously, we've got some big reveals and some things to share going forward today, which I can't wait to get to, because I have no idea. Alex knows more than me, so I'm going to likely lose it.
Yeah, this is what I kind of said to Dave straight away. Was we spoke at the actual offset, and I said, "This is the order I have the pictures in. Can we go in this order?" And then George goes straight in and just totally blows it out. I said to Dave that was going to happen straight away, because he was saying should we have it structured so we do this. I said,
not with
I'm
me.
going to put the photos in this order, and George is going to probably try his hardest not to follow that order. So yeah. So let's just go back a little step back now. And so do you want to go back to kind of how Tweeterhead started and how you kind of got into it?
Oh, yikes. Okay, so I think we're on like our 12th year officially as Tweeterhead. And to be very honest, like in the 90s, I was like a model kit guy. I collected model kits and built model kits, and I was working in the finance industry. I was the head of human resources at a couple of different companies, and got laid off, and just wanted to see what was out there kind of creatively. And long story short, I was like, I didn't know anything about collectible statues, but model kits. So we started working, making some model kits, and then just slowly but surely, I had an idea for a statue that I wanted to do. The first thing, it's a little pinup witch named Kimba. Made her, and then all of a sudden somebody was like, hey, what do you want to do? You should really do licensed products. Who do you want to work with? And I'm like, well, Elvira, of course. I've been obsessed with her my whole life, and they just happened to know her manager, and so we contacted them, and that was kind of the birth of Tweeterhead officially, I think.
Well, perfect way to give birth to a company then with Elvira.
Yeah, I borrowed the VHS of Elvira off of Geo, and the part where she does the tassel thing at the end was really fuzzy, and it just kind of didn't work. Yeah, it was overused for sure.
Oh my god, yeah, the tracking was off.
Oh, totally.
Yeah,
that was paused for quite a long time.
Yeah, actually, a little tiny side note is I had family in town last week, and it was raining, and we were stuck inside the house, and I was like, what do you guys want to watch? And it's like, I don't know. I'm like, I'm just gonna put on the best movie in the whole world. So I put on Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. They were aged 25 to 66, and they were laughing their asses off. And that movie is over 30 years old, so it was kind of cool.
Yeah, I actually, when I was in Japan, we found this little random bar, and there's a place called the Golden Guy, and it's like 100 little bars, and they're all about the size of a room, and you could probably get a maximum of 8 people in each bar.
Mhm.
And they had one which had all these like VHSs across the bar and all the back of the bar, and you literally all you could order was whiskey. And we went in there, and they were playing Elvira, and we watched it while we were in there. That was the last time I saw it.
Yeah, it held up. It holds up.
Who is this on the? What is that? Cauldron?
So that, yeah, that's my little Kimba witch. Like when she was a model kit, I did her, flying on the broom, which you showed earlier. we did a little bubble bath thing with her on the bubble bath. But I think
So
that
like
picture
which
is somebody.
then? Like a
Pardon?
pin-up, like a
Yeah,
witch
like a
pin-up. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. And that's certainly not an original idea. If you Google Gil Elfgren, the king of pinups, like he actually, I basically copied the one on the broom from a piece of his artwork. And then we also did her as like a little bubble bath thing, and then we did her sitting on a bunch of pumpkins, which I don't know if that ever got released as a model kit, but I think this is somebody's model kit that they bought and painted.
And then we kind of go into the monsters, and these ones are actually very
That's so awesome.
hard to get hold of at the moment. I
Oh,
remember seeing someone listing
impossible.
this recently. I think they listed the black and white version, and
She was a
I'm sure
beautiful
it was
woman as
something
well.
like
That
12,000
Princess, I can't remember her name. I've forgotten her name. The female,
Who,
the mum.
Yvonne DiCarlo?
Yeah, beautiful. She was beautiful woman. I remember I used to when I was a kid, like there was these kind of glamorous women. You just like, whoa. Even as
Yeah.
monsters, you were like, yeah, that'll do. He was hilarious, obviously.
So I did the Elvira, and then it was like, oh, so now I dip my toe in. So then it was like, what do you want to do next? And like, I'm 52 years old, but I basically, grew up on DC Comics, the Batman 1966 show, and the Munsters. And so it was just really perfect timing where, again, I don't think I could do this today, but I just called up Universal, and I got connected to someone at Universal Studios. They got the license for me for the Munsters, and then we just, blew it out. I mean, no one makes even an action figure of Marilyn Munster, let alone a full, $350 statue,
I had to put these pictures in there as well, just to
Oh my God.
make George jealous. So
Oh my God.
they're in and out of the outfit. So
That's just
Yeah.
cool as hell, man. That's just wicked, isn't it?
Yeah.
and then also this leads into obviously you have then the new Elvira that you're working on. So this
Yeah, which if you go back to that picture you just showed and then this one, that's where you really kind of see the growth of Tweeterhead, I think.
Expression.
Like just so like much more elevated, But that's not to say this one, that first one was spectacular. It put us on the map, but this is the one where I was like, this
So
has to just
realistic.
be perfect. Yeah.
It looks just like a spot on. It's really good.
Yeah, thank you.
Really good. Because the first one has that sort of almost comic-y feel, doesn't it? Almost animated, in its styling.
Yeah, I think I think we'll all agree we're all our own worst critics. And like when I see the first one, I'm also like, what's she looking up in the air at? Like a giant? Like it just doesn't make any sense. Kind of like what she's like. Every single thing I do, I judge, like insanely. So, but this one I don't judge this at all. I think this one's perfect.
You'd be the right person to make that call, since
Yeah.
you like stood next to her and have met her a few times and probably big fan of the film. I mean, how do you feel like when you look at how you started? Does that make you a little bit sympathetic to other people that sort of are trying desperately to get licensed and get recognized, and they're going around and trying to do it whatever way they can? You started off with kits. You started off trying to make stuff. You took a few, you used somebody's artwork as inspiration to make things. Do you find that you have a little bit of sympathy for people that are sculpting or art directing or trying to get there?
100%. And David and I just talked about this last night. Like for me, I know for David, if you call up David or email him and say, hey, can you recommend a painter, sculptor, concept artist, you name it, he is an open book. Same way with me. Whenever I first started, breaking into this, like I couldn't find a factory to save my life. And it was completely coincidental that somebody that I knew had a contact for a factory. And, and again, we talked about this last night. There's enough room for everyone, right?
Sure.
So why wouldn't we help each other out? As opposed to trying to block people from, what they have a passion for and what they want to try to do.
I like that mentality.
But also like, when I started, again, we're talking 12 years ago, it was a very different world. You could just call up Universal Studios if you wanted to. But yeah, I mean, I think our motto is like, we'll help anybody out. If you have a question about a factory or you have a question about, some resources, I know so many people have helped me out along the way. And for instance, like when I went, I took my little pinup witch into Sideshow, and they immediately were like, "Yeah, we'd love to distribute her," and then the doors opened into the distribution world. So, we're not here to block anyone's success. We're just here to help support people.
The only time it gets a little weird is if you're making a licensed character in a certain size, and I've been hit up by a couple people like, "Dude, I want to hit up Mattel and do something like you're doing," and it's like,
no,
that's where it gets a little weird. Like, dude, like it's like I can't just like, hey, here's all right, let them make 5th scale statues or 8th scale. You know what I mean? Like something so close. Like, dude, we're doing that. Like kind of thing. And I get that's where it gets like a little weird. Not like Chad said. I hate the idea of like acting like I'm the gatekeeper for anything, because I'll introduce you to Mattel, but I can just tell you right now, they're actually probably one of the best licensors in terms of protecting like a certain, like, hey, Tweeterhead has this, Mondo has this, Iron Studios doing this. Like,
supporting the companies that they've actually granted license to, in that way, protecting their sort of investment and obviously your sort of progression on it. Yeah, it's quite interesting to know that, because obviously this has been, again, you've been, sort of really trying to progress this sort of side of thing, even when you started at Sideshow. I mean, how did you actually find your way into sort of into this field? Because you're the, I mean, for me, we always talk about you as a creative genius, and we say regularly that the moment you sort of went away from Sideshow, they've really, I felt, me and Alex have always said that we felt that they lost something, that there was a big loss. And I mean, we noticed it in some of the work. So that I think that's the biggest compliment I can give you. But how did you find your way? Because I mean, I've got a 5-year-old who it tells me all the time, I'm going to be a painter, I'm going to be a sculptor. I don't know if this is my fault that this is happening, but regardless, how did you navigate your starts to get to where you are?
It's kind of, I think it's a huge part of it is keeping an open mind, because I want to be an animator for Disney. I want to be a comic book artist. Those were like the two. I was kind of like, I want to be a comic book artist. I want to be a Disney for animator, because I started out drawing when I was in like I've been drawing since I was a little kid, but I remember it was 4th grade. We had a guest like a guest person come into our classroom, and it was this guy that teaches at an art school. And he taught us how to draw Batman using circles and squares and triangles, and it like blew my mind. And I could definitely say that was the moment where I was like, I want to do this for the rest of my life. So I only drew buff dudes for the longest time. And I think at one point my parents were like, all right, we still love him. I'm like, no, I love women. I just love drawing men. I don't know why. Like, Chad,
I don't collect any females either.
Isn't that weird? Like, Chad,
so weird.
Chad's pickiest things is like when I worked on Tilo, that was when he like jumped. All right, I got to be involved in Tilo. All right, Wonder Woman. All right, Elvira. It's like, what is it about like, like we collect superhero buff dudes. It's hilarious. I drew buff dudes for the longest time. I'm horrible with drawing women, sculpting women, any of that stuff. But I remember I like right as I was going to high school, I think that's like when Marvel started to be like, oh, we're going I think I was like around the bankruptcy, like the huge crash. That was like after, the X-Men movies came out and everything. So my art teacher's like, hey, you should get into 2D animation. That's the way to go. I'm like, all right, cool. So I was like, I'll try 2D animation. I love cartoons. Cartoons are cool. I went to school for that. And then as I was graduating, the animation industry tanked. I was like, what the hell? Like every time I'm trying to like get into something, the industry tanks. So I was at my first San Diego Comic-Con. I think it was 2004 was my first San Diego Comic-Con, I think. And I came out on my own. I just graduated school, came out with my portfolio. I got to meet a couple of people I knew online, which is really cool. It's like early day art forum boards. And I was all on my own, just like this 20-year-old guy, like just out there with like my portfolio. I think I was 21 actually. But that's when I went to another convention in LA that was called SIGGRAPH, and it's like a visual effects kind of a convention. So Comic-Con at the time was still mostly comics, some additional pop culture. But then SIGGRAPH is very much like computer graphics. Weta was there showing like Lord of the Rings behind the scenes stuff and all that stuff. And I found this school called Vancouver Film School. And I was like, all right, I guess this is what's next for me. The industry's blown up in 3D animation. So I went to school for that for a year and a half. And then when I graduated, no one would hire me because I didn't have like all the big effect shops were like, oh, what's your work experience? I'm like, I just graduated. I have no work experience. So then I was at Comic-Con 2006, I think, and that's when I had a table with a couple art buddies. That's when I met the owner of Gentle Giant Studios. He came by, saw my portfolio. He's like, hey, do you want to draw stuff? I'm like, yeah. So that was my first job, was Gentle Giant Studios, drawing full-time. I was their first in-house concept artist, and I, was there for 3 years. Then a guy that used to work at Gentle Giant was now at Sideshow, and it felt like at Gentle Giant there's like a weird moment of like, hey, are they going to let certain artists go? Am I safe? Am I whatever? And so a friend that was working at Sideshow was like, hey, I ran to him at another Comic-Con. So all this was like at conventions. It's Comic-Con 2006 or 7. No, I forgot which one it was. It was like 3 years later. But he's like, hey, Sideshow's looking to hire in-house concept artists. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Sideshow's great. So got in touch with them. And, 3 months later, I started there as their first in-house concept artist. And I was, there for 10 years. It was great. Huge learning experience, man. Because I went from in-house designer to they want to do so much design stuff that I was like, all right, well, I have art friends on my online art forum board called Satellite Soda, and I had a bunch of friends graduating school, and they're all animation students. And I was like, I think animators could probably do a good job designing statues because it's all about like pose and gesture and bringing a story in the base and all that stuff. So I started freelancing a couple people I knew, and then I became like the design manager. So I was managing and drawing, and then eventually I became art director. And so I was working with all the designers, sculptors, painters, and stuff to, through prototype. And then I was more involved in the business side, meaning like every couple of weeks they had like a big admin team meeting. So I was up there with 2 owners and the head of production, head of marketing, head of whatever. And so I got to really learn a lot about the business side and like what's working, what's not working, or whatever. So when at a certain point, I love Sideshow, and I want to do certain things. They want to do things a little bit differently. So someone has to initiate the breakup, and they did, and it was on good terms. Actually, I had a really great talk with my boss, Tom. We had like a hour, 2 hour, like we're almost in his office for like 2 hours just talking. It was just great. It was just like reminiscing, talking about everything. He's like, I know you want to do this, and the company needs to go this way. So I think it's best if, you find where you can be a better fit. And I'm like, that's cool. And I appreciate having that like really honest moment with him. Not like, HR or any of these weird, it was just like a very honest, awesome conversation. They really took care of me on my exit. And, I was actually already working with Chad at Tweeterhead, because for a while where the overlap was, we started the He-Man statue line. It wasn't called Legends then at Sideshow. And then when Sideshow was going to stop making them, that's when I knew of Chad, and we talked a couple times. That's when he and I really connected. He was at Sideshow, like in the waiting room, and he was in there with something, and he's like, oh, I'm here to, hey, blah, blah, blah. I'm here to meet with Connie, maybe talk about some stuff. I'm like, oh, you got a He-Man? He had this like He-Man thing you want to do. I'm like, would you want to like continue making the He-Man stuff we were making? He's like, oh my God, I'd love to. Because I'm like, we're not making it. So Orko was the first overlap of like, it was under Sideshow's license, but it was a Tweeterhead effort. And so after Orko, Sideshow's license expired, I talked to my boss, Tom, like, hey, is it cool if I, this is while I was still there as an art director. I was like, hey, is it cool if I help Chad get the license on his own? And I keep helping him after hours because, we'll sell it on Sideshow and we're not making it. And he's like, yeah, it's totally cool. So I actually was working on Hordak with Chad while I was still at Sideshow. And then when I transitioned out, like we finished, I think Hordak was finished right before I was.
Yeah.
And then after I was out, then COVID happened. Like February 21st, 2020 was my last day at Sideshow. And then COVID lockdown was like 2-3 weeks later. So just everything, it was kind of crazy. And that's when, I wasn't sure what my future was. And Chad was like, dude, can we make this work at Tweeterhead? I'm like, I'd love to, man. If I can make He-Man statues full-time, hell yeah. So we figured out a way to make that work. And yeah, and sorry, that's like a long answer.
But I want to dive in just really quick, because Dave, we would not have the He-Man stuff we do now if it wasn't for Dave, because really what I think I was going to go to Mattel, Dave, and pitch them on kind of like the Filmation style, but just beefed up like maybe 15%, like more realistic. And that's when you're like, well, why are you doing that? And like, why are you starting from scratch instead of like helping, continue this? And so that's when we were like, well, let's just do a test. And who better to test the audience with than Orko? And he sold like crazy. Like, so it was
That's
really, it
genius.
was that.
Chad, that's really clever. It's
Yeah,
really smart that you decided
it was all,
Orko was the sacrificial lamb of test. I like that a lot. That's clever.
Well, because he's like, obviously smaller, easier to produce, not as much money to make. Like, it was a perfect little tester. And I'm sure we'll talk about this later on, but MOTU and our friend Val Staples, who we both give credit to for the only reason we all remember MOTU exist is because when the internet started, Val Staples created He-Man.org, and he has kept that fire going for decades.
Yeah, and with PowerCon and everything, yeah.
And with PowerCon, and if he hadn't have done that, I really don't know. I mean, I don't know. I know that the popularity as it is today would not be there. So and I think you'll get this from me too. And I think this is one of the reasons Dave and I get along so well is like, you got to look at the people that help you get where you are and the people that helped you. Like the reason MOTU is still so relevant now, there's a couple people that really kept that, flame going.
Yeah.
So it was going to lead me on to my question to you, actually was to you, Chad, was like, how did you manage to steal the man away? How did you two meet and decide that this was something that you wanted to take on together?
Steal Dave away, or
yeah, like how did you? Tell me he wasn't walking around. Tell me he wasn't walking around the con like look with his book.
Like, no. Dave, like it was actually perfect timing. It was like we were working together, and it was just kind of seamless. I mean, it was like, it was just I think like a perfect storm when it happened, and Dave and I were already working together, and then it was like, hey, can we make this work together? And let's just try it. And
yeah, Chad and I were already like kind of working together with the blessing of my boss at Sideshow. He's like, yeah, help Chad after hours get this MOTU line continue. It's kind of something we started at Sideshow, and Chad can continue it. And so when I was let go, like I didn't really tell a lot. I mean, I made a post about it, but it was like just I don't think anyone knew what I was up to. And Chad and I had already been working together, and I think it was like the week after I was let go was my birthday. It was really fun timing. So lose your job of 10 years, happy birthday. And I drove up north. My brother was living in San Francisco at the time. And Chad's like, you got to come up. Because he lives in Healdsburg, which is like another hour drive north of San Francisco. And my mom was flying in to see my brother. So I was like, I have nothing to do. I'm going to drive up there, hang out with my brother and my mom. And then, hey, mom, change your flight. You're going with me to Healdsburg to hang out for a day with Chad. And then we're going to do a road trip back down. She hung out with me at my house for a bit. I'm a huge mama's boy. I love my mom. She's one of my best friends. And so that's when Chad and I really like talked about like, it was all fresh. I was like, a little bit lost. You're out of place for 10 years. And there's the looming coronavirus. Lockdowns didn't quite happen yet. And so it's just like, it was crazy how that like all worked. It was just like Chad said, weird, perfect timing, like stars aligning stuff. This is bonkers.
And and I Dave and I talked about this a little bit yesterday, just like kind of preparing for this. Is like, like I said, like I've been a one-man show forever, and it was there are days that are more difficult than others whenever you're the only one, besides my friend Debbie, who was like our customer service person, trying to handle everything. And so there were times where I was like, is Tweeterhead petering out. And really, when Dave came on board, I was really starting to think about his Tweeterhead petering out, and he really breathed like a whole new life into what we were doing. And I think if you look at the stuff before, stuff after, I would be a fool to say you can't see a difference in the level of detail, the products, etc.
Well, that's good timing with the pieces on screen now. I mean, look at the detail on that. It's ridiculous.
It's crazy.
Who's that? What do you call him, Alex? Gillyman, is it? Is it Gillyman who lives with Gilly Woman or something?
Gilman.
Yes, Gilman. It's not Gilman. He's not like a Jewish man who owns a shop under the sea, Mr. Gilman.
Oh,
it's Gilman.
There's a the Gilman.
Yeah. We also skipped some of the these pieces here as well, because did you want to talk about the Chris Saunders pieces?
Yeah, so that was actually another one that was I I've always been a fan of Chris's work, and I pitched it with a handful of other things when I was at Sideshow. Like at the time, it was like, hey, Adi Granov Sova, which became a statue, Chris Sanders stuff, and I think like the Shane Glines Devil Girl. And so when I was at Sideshow, we produced the first one was the Pumpkin Witch, and then they made Island Girl. The Island Girl was done when I was like done sculpt wise when I was still there. And then when I wasn't there anymore, they were painting it. So after a while, Sideshow was like, hey, we're not sure if we're going to continue working with them. And I was like, I would love to continue working with Chris. And I know Chad was a fan of his work too. So yeah, I've known Chris because of my time at Sideshow. So I knew him for a few years. And so I reached out to him and he was excited. So we made the Nimue 2.0, which is based on his original self-produced statue, which was Nimue 1. First edition or whatever. And she had a different shark. We updated the sculpt with Anders, the sculptor, who's an amazing artist. And Chad's been working with him on some other stuff too, which is great. So I love Anders. She has a great style, great take on things. And so we tweaked some things. So people that own the original, it's still that. And this one, when you look at them, they look mostly the same. I think that the shark and the paint are the most obvious things, but the base sand was updated. Her anatomy is tweaked a little bit everywhere. I think we updated the face a little bit. And so Chris is awesome. For those that don't know, he's an amazing genius. He designed Stitch from Lilo and Stitch, and he co-directed that movie. And he designed Toothless and co-directed the first How to Train Your Dragons movie.
Oh, my son, I love that.
Yeah, so he's a great guy, super animated, just as you can imagine, animation director would be. He directed a live action movie with Harrison Ford called The Wild or something. It came out like 3 or 4 years ago. But he has a new movie coming out. I forgot what it's called, and I wasn't ready for this, but it's a brand new trailer for DreamWorks about a robot that crash lands like in nature, and there's nothing else around. The robot learns to like love nature, and it looks. I haven't like teared up watching like a trailer with almost no dialogue like in a long time. So he's just like a creative genius to me, and I love his take on whimsical, cute, but still sexy, but not like slutty chicks. They're awesome.
Yeah.
I love them. So yeah. And Chad and I are talking with Chris about what, we have ideas of what the next piece in line could be. So we're that's a slow burn one because Chris is also super busy being a film director. So we work with him if we can. But
was the film with Harrison Ford the one with the dog?
Yeah.
Oh, I watched that recently. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I think that was his first live action. He directed the Croods animated movie. I don't think.
Oh my god, my son loves that and all.
Yeah, so he's got quite a resume. He started out as I forgot if he was a props designer or a storyboard artist or character designer, like on TV and animated stuff. That he was like, he didn't, you don't start as a film director. You start somewhere else, and he started in animation. He's just great. So if anyone's ever at San Diego Comic-Con, he always has a booth there. Super nice, friendly guy. Has this cool little art of books that's chock full of this kind of stuff, his original female stuff, and the mermaids, pirates, and Halloween chicks. Like Pumpkin Girl is one of my favorites, and Kelly, my wife, is a huge fan. So we have his entire collection basically in a little thing in our house. So I love his work. I love working with him. So yeah, it's a departure a little bit for Tweeterhead. Like kind of like a return to Kimba in a way, but a little more stylized and pushed one way, and it's got this cute, fun, whimsical nature to it. So
it's nice because you give a nod sort of again to your origins, and obviously, Chad, you seem to like the pin-up sort of look and style. Mm-hmm. So that's a great thing to you've got to like make the things you love, haven't you? Because then the label of love is in it, and everybody can feel it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, if you don't have a passion for it, I don't know if it's going to come across. So I think like collectively, all the stuff we're doing, we, either Dave or I, sometimes we like it more than the other, and that's why, it works out so well, I think.
Yeah. Pass the torch a bit back and forth, But yeah, talking about when you guys were talking earlier about like the newer stuff and the details and stuff, it's great because Chad's very open to like me working with artists I've worked with before. And, sometimes when you're at a bigger company, there's like a lot more things you have to worry about, a lot more moving parts. When you're a smaller company, we could just have someone work on something a little bit and like, oh, they're not quite getting it, pass it to this person. Doesn't have to go through like a lot of layers of red tape. So Chad's been very great about trusting me with the projects I'm responsible for and kind of like passing them around a little bit. Like Gilman has like, I think 4 different sculptors credited on it. And you think like, why did 4 people work on like just this one thing? It's like, because sometimes you gotta, someone's getting it and then you get to a point and then they're struggling a little bit and they're great, but you're just like, all right, this is the guy I need to bring on. Just like when you're a sports team,
like
I don't watch sports.
Yeah, like a sub. Yeah, like a sport. Yeah, I get you completely. Fresh energy, fresh eyes, never hurt. I get it. I was going to ask you, how did you, like in regards to this, how did you move for this? This is your myths and monsters line, right?
Yeah.
So how did this come into fruition? I mean, I can't help but when I look at this, I know this isn't a reference, but it takes me right back to Monster Squad. That was my first introduction to that the sea monster, because obviously I'm like, I'm 42, so I don't remember like the Black Lagoon, the creature under the sea, or the black. Is it the Black Lagoon and all that kind of stuff? Like this, to me, that the reference I'm getting is the Gilman in that movie.
So when I started working with Chad on the He-Man stuff, Chad immediately was like, "All right, I want to do some original monsters, like what you're doing with He-Man." I'm like, Chad, I need you to put that in writing and send it to me in an email. So everyone, if it ever comes up, people know it came from you, because when I was still at Sideshow, I was part of working on that Frankenstein's monster that came out recently. And so I didn't see any conflict. So we actually, Chad's like, hey, let me just do that. Let me set up a call with Sideshow, make sure they know that came from me and it's my idea and we're all cool. And we actually shared a line list with Sideshow about like, what do they want to do? What do we want to do to make sure we're not like stepping on each other's toes? And this is a couple of years ago. And so, and we both were like, hey, let's make our stuff fit scale. So they work together. So if people buy the Frankenstein monster from Sideshow and they buy our Gilman, they work together. And to me, they're, oh, go ahead, Alex.
Sorry, I actually said something about that when these were like being shown.
No,
I remember on one of the chats, I remember mentioning something along that them lines about how you and Sideshow are both doing the line at the same time and both doing them in the same scale. And that conversation must have happened. Yeah. I remember raising that point.
I can't speak for all their stuff because I know the Frankensteins. I know Sideshow was at WonderCon this last weekend, had a panel and talked about new monsters. So I'm not sure if that's the same as this or if that's something different. I just want to clarify because I don't want people, people can jump to conclusions pretty easily. But it was cool to like have that conversation with them and with Chad, and we showed him kind of our stuff. We're kind of mixing stuff around a little bit. Of like, we had Chad and I were like, all right, let's do Gilman, then let's do Wolfman next. And we're like, hey, let's not feel like we're stuck in like the classic Universal Monsters type characters. Let's like vary it up a little bit. So we designed a Medusa and some other stuff. And Alex, I don't know if you want to like, we could stay on this actually for a little bit before
we got 5 slides to get to that if you want.
All right.
But you know what I wanted to say really quick too is like when I started Tweeterhead and it was a model kit company. There's a really incredible sculptor named Tony McVeigh. Worked on all the original Star Wars movies. He created that, Dave, what is it, that little monster on Jabba's?
Oh, Salacious Crumb. Yeah.
He created that. But he had some original monsters. He did a Frankenstein, a Gilman, a mummy, a werewolf. And then I commissioned him to do a Dracula, but I licensed those from him. So this love of monsters goes back to like before Tweeterhead was really anything. And I have a list of million monsters long.
I have to ask you, come on, I got to ask, what's your favorite monster?
Oh God, let me think for 2 seconds.
This is a conversation me and my son have regularly.
Oh, my favorite, I think Christopher Lee Dracula. You can't get any better than Christopher Lee.
Of course. What about you, David?
Or actually, sorry, I take it back. I'm obsessed with witches, and so that movie, The Witch, with Anna Taylor-Joy, amazing.
Oh shit! Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
One of my all-time favorite movies ever.
Where her little brother goes missing. That's the one.
I know.
Yeah.
That film's fucked up, man.
If I could tell you my little pet peeve.
Starts talking to her, yeah.
And my little pet peeve with that movie is, I really wish they had ended it with you not knowing that she really was a witch and floating up in the air or whatever. I really wish they had just ended it.
Spoiler.
When sorry. It's not too soon, right? When Black Phillip says, would you like to live deliciously? I wish it just cut to black. And you were like, is that in her mind? Is that not in her mind? Because I kind of felt like, and again, we're getting off the subject, but I kind of felt like now knowing the woods are full of witches, it kind of took a little bit of the uniqueness away from it for me. But that's just me.
I needed that blatantness of it. I needed it. I needed that because I was like, "What is going on? This is like fucked." I did like, and then when it was like she was flying around, I was like, okay." I was like, I needed that idiot-proof stuff. Well, David, what's your monster, man?
Dude, so it varies. Like, and I have a weird thing about what's a monster, what's a creature. So I'm just gonna lump it all together. But I think probably my favorite one of all time is the Rancor from Star Wars. It's just like the coolest looking head, creature, arm, like the proportions. It's got like this cool crustiness, scaling, plating, but with loose. It's like the perfect combination of everything. So I'd say Rancor wins.
Spoken like a true artist, David. True artist.
And actually, it's funny. So I was looking at a couple of the NECA Gremlins toys. If you look at the Gremlins and the Rancor, they're extremely similar. Like if you chopped off their heads, you would be hard pressed to what's what because they have the same,
that's a great shout.
Same lanky arms, same little bodies. It's like it's crazy how like similar some of the stuff can be sometimes.
What about you, Alex?
I would say a modern one. It's weird because I hate saying this because it kind of spoils the movie. But if you guys haven't seen The Ritual on Netflix, that's got one of the craziest takes on monster, like a new thing. It's awesome.
Is that the awesome. Sweden? They go to like some like is that they go? It's like a god almost.
It's like a bunch of friends going backpacking and they take a shortcut instead of going around the forest, they go through the forest and they
I think I've seen
stuff. It's the craziest. The creature at the end of that movie is like so amazing because it's so unique and different. It feels like creatures you see a lot of the same stuff. And The Ritual is one where I'm like, I've never seen that before, and I fucking love it. So yeah, love that one.
Yeah, I don't know now because I've literally gone totally blank. I've literally gone totally blank now thinking about it because I know that if I like a lot of the horror stuff I like is they're more like humanoid characters that I prefer rather than actual monsters.
You're saying like Freddy,
Jason, like Freddy, Jason, Candyman. I like the kind of human element of it, but creature-wise, I've gone blank. I've gone really blank. It'll come back to me. But,
suck at this game. You better get better at this when your son starts to learn how to talk because you suck at this game.
Oh, God damn it! What about you then, George?
I got a really funny soft spot for the Wolfman. I really like the Benicio del Toro. The Benicio del Toro one. The scene in the asylum is for me is a bit of genius. There's something about being like a person that struggles with controlling myself. Like it's my biggest battle is to stop me from killing other people. I would say that that monster part of it where you basically it's almost like a it's sort of like it's a modern day sort of telling of that, isn't it? Like a man that loses control turns into a bit of a monster and then leaves a trail of absolute destruction behind him. So I've got a really soft spot. I really did enjoy the Benicio del Toro take on that. A lot of people didn't like that film, but I really liked it. And then when I was a kid, I really liked Wolf, with Jack Nicholson.
I was just going to bring that up. It was him and Michelle Pfeiffer, right?
That's right, yeah. And I think it's Spader as well.
Was she a wolf also, or was it just him?
At the end, she is, yeah. At the end, she's walking and she is, yeah. She's got her eyes have got it.
There are some movies that you can watch over and over and over and over and over again. And American Werewolf in London is, if it's ever on and I'm flipping through, I mean, the visual effects, amazing.
Yeah, you stick, yeah. You never see Wolf, that film. I never ever see it come on. With Jack Nicholson,
it wasn't well received, I don't think. Yeah, the next slide is the preview.
Before you jump to the next slide, Alex, I just gotta say I think my favorite werewolf movie is Dog Soldiers. Was like
that's a brilliant
blew my mind. And then one that was a shocking surprise. It's not the best movie, but has some really great stuff, and I highly recommend it. Is WER. It's like kind of amazing. Like they have a cool some unique takes on it. And
WER.
WER. Yeah, it's like
I need to see this. I don't know. I've never heard of this.
Great one. Hunt that one down. That was a fun surprise one. So I just want to throw that out there. I know a lot of people know of Dog Soldiers, but a bunch of people don't. Because I think like The Howling and American Werewolf in London,
Oh,
or
the
like
Howling! Oh my god,
or like
I love the Howling.
Bad Moon was always one from my childhood I love because it was like a crazy looking werewolf on steroids. But yeah, Dog Soldier is probably the one I've seen the most times, and then War was I think one that not enough people know about that I think is worth watching. So,
I've never heard of it.
Yeah,
The Howling. That's one of my, because I'm 52 years old and I was an 80s horror movie kid, and so the Howling I love. Except, I just watched it. It was so hard to find on demand. Like, it wasn't out forever. I don't know if it was like a licensing issue, but if you watch it, I don't know the last time you've watched it or not. But when Dee Wallace goes back into the newsroom and she turns into the little werewolf, and she looks like a little werewolf baby, like it's so sweet, her little face and nose and everything. Very weird, but that I thought, Dave, I thought you were gonna say Michael J. Fox, Teen Wolf.
What film that is? When I'm in the gym and I'm training, I have the soundtrack. You know, the last match, that song, "Winning the End." It's like very like nobody would ever know that song, but I still have that. I've got a soft spot for Teen Wolf, man. Teen Wolf is awesome.
Do you know there's a weird thing at the end of Teen Wolf where some guy's literally got his cock out in the back in the film?
No.
Yeah, yeah. There's like
I'll be right back.
There's a thing in the bleachers. They're all in the bleachers cheering, and there's a guy literally standing there with his trousers down and his cock out. It was in the movie. It was in the movie. Yeah.
I have to now check that out and find that.
Yeah. So someone told me
Shooting for the Moon is on the song.
All right, anyway, leading on from that, there's a reveal. Yeah. Do you want to talk about it first, Dave, or just go straight?
So Chad and I, so we've shown a couple pieces of art because like I said earlier, we kind of like bounce things around a lot. We're like, hey, like the MOTU line keeps changing. Like, what character comes first? Like, we get a little bit further on a character, we push it out, prioritize another character. Same with the Myths and Monsters line, where Chad and I like start with Gilman, talk about maybe doing Wolfman, then maybe Medusa, maybe move Medusa up. But then Chad threw another idea at me you want to see. So yeah, if you want to jump to the next slide. So we've shown Medusa and Wolfman before, but we haven't shown our take on Krampus yet. So Chad and I have, Chad brought up, you really want to do a Krampus. So we have Krampus on our list. It might happen next. It might happen after Medusa, but it seems like it's a tie between whether we go Krampus or Medusa. And then Wolfman we have actually a partial sculpt started on him. We just want to like pepper the landscape a little bit more and change some things up. So the Medusa art, it's come up a few times and people talk about it online. We've seen that's not the actual pose. That was like a rough design idea that we worked on with Paul Komoda, who did the design for Gilman and the Wolfman art right there. But we're going to change a couple things on it, but it's just like to show the idea. Like, I love the snakes making like the hood shape of a cobra, like silhouette. Yeah. I think that's awesome. Paul Komoda's did some really cool body artwork on models before. He's an amazing designer, but like his body artwork almost looked like scales. And so Chad and I talked about making this Medusa like a sexier version of the Ray Harryhausen one. So instead of making it like she's nude in a way, and we're still playing with the design, instead of it being covered in like these round, gross scales, and she has a gross face, we're like, let's make a beautiful version, but then let's give her like a monster, like a snake head too. So
I mean, that's clever because when you know the mythology, she was cursed because of that.
Yeah,
she was beautiful, wasn't she? She was so beautiful that she seduced a god, and God came down, and I think he ravished her, which is a polite term for rape, I believe, in the olden days. Yeah. But I believe that I can't remember who the god was.
I remember
God. They were so pissed. The females. So gods.
It was. So what I heard is that she was human, and she was with somebody in the temple of Aphrodite, and he said, "You're even more beautiful than Aphrodite herself." And Aphrodite came down and cursed her. But the idea is that, and I love the Harryhausen Medusa. I mean, at one point I was begging to like do that. Yeah, but she's still a beautiful woman. Like whenever Aphrodite gives her the snakes, she's still a beautiful woman. And the idea is that men want to look at her and they're going to die. Like it's just
that's what I'm saying. It's that kind of exactly, Chad. It's that irony, sort of it. The point is you can't help but look, and she's still a stunner. I mean, I can't remember there was a film. I don't know if it was the remake of Clash of the Titans, but they did make her more attractive. In the first one, like the classic one, she's like rough stuff. In the second one, I'm pretty sure when they remade it, they had her. She was she was struck.
Yeah, she was gorgeous. Yeah, she was gorgeous. The first one, she was like a mess. But I will say, like, and because we talk about, we're digressing a little bit. Is the first one, the Harryhausen, that Medusa? I love that character. I love the way when they're down in her little chamber, how she kind of comes out. If you go rewatch it, she kind of like slithers out, and she has to like use her arms to help her down the steps. Like, it's just so amazing the way he thought out that character.
Yeah.
And then she like lifts herself up, and it's like, and then I also read this interview with him, and the other part I love too is she's been down there for so long and hasn't talked to anybody, because anybody that comes down, she inevitably kills. That she doesn't talk anymore because she's lost the ability to talk.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I was talking to David earlier when we were talking about Krampus, which I have never seen, and now I've seen the monster that you're like, or your take on it. Why is it that I can see Beauty and the Beast part elements to this? Is that me on the Krampus? I'm getting totally Beauty and the Beast vibes from the Krampus. Is that?
That's an accent where we've been playing around. We're still playing around with like how many horns we want to give him, like, because sometimes it's one set. Some people do two sets. I like the idea of doing a couple sets. The long tongue is a very common thing with him too. I personally am not the fan of like just a tongue dragging everywhere. So we're gonna do a couple alternate heads. But I would say Beauty and the Beast is like an accidental, maybe slightly subconscious.
Well, I don't think it's intentional. I've never seen the monster. Does Krampus monster have any elements like similar to that?
I mean,
like
kind
of version of Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, I'd say there's a bit. I mean, there's tons of different like iterations of him. That's one thing why I love him so much, is there's no like this is Krampus, right? Like, I think if you can get a nerd argument with people like, oh, this is Gilman, the original, Universal monsters, then the Monster Squad one, and then but I would say most people say this is the way Gilman should look. And with Wolfman, everyone has their opinions on if it should be werewolf, more wolf, or more human with wolf stuff going on. So Krampus, I think, is one that's like totally open to interpretation. I don't think there's anyone where anyone would be like, oh, this is Krampus, so, which I love about him.
They look fantastic, man.
Thanks, man.
I can't wait to see where you go with this. And I think the Medusa is very striking. I can't wait to see how you pose it and stuff. And I kind of like the hood idea is going to make it probably safer to ship than having everything all over the bloody place.
Yeah,
because it's a nightmare. Medusa pit. I mean, we've been in this game a long time, and we've had numerous ones sent to us. And I think it's one of the pieces that has had probably the most breakages we've ever received. We've had so many sent that we've not been able to show.
Yeah, that's why we're also not rushing into her. We'll make sure we get her right in design, right in sculpt, right in making sure things are right for production. Because thank God, this is one thing I love about Chad. If I'm working on something crazy, he'll be like, "Isn't that going to be?" I'm like, "Shit," So we always, and then I'll catch something Chad might be working. I'm like, "Do you want to?" He's like, "Oh yeah, good call." We try to make it as safe as possible. We don't want to like lose all ambition in what we do either. It's just like it's that balance of how to make things work. Yeah, no, we're excited about the future of this line. It's been great. Like Paul Komoda on the Gilman statue. Again, there's, I think, 4 different sculptors, like Amilcar Fong worked on early body stuff. Quincy worked on the initial design of him. Ariel Mora Ramus is one of our artists we work with all the time, did the base like completely on his own with the snakes and frogs and it's like, I love, he just brought so much life in that base. I think there's like 2 or 3 frogs, 2 turtles on top. Got this awesome snake in there too. And then Paul Komoda, who's an amazing artist. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but he's like a name to be reckoned with, in my opinion. And he's a traditional artist that is a designer. He works in feature film. He's worked at effects shops, creature designer, sculptor, but he also worked at Art Asylum way back in the day, one of the earliest statue companies, kind of like after Bowen and Claiborne Moore. I'd put Art Asylum up there as like the next wave of statue companies. And he was a great traditional artist, but I'm a ZBrush teacher, which most collectibles are made in ZBrush now. And so I was like, Paul, I want to teach you ZBrush on this Gilman. So I took the place where Quincy left it, where it's all kind of roughed in. I would give Paul just the head. I'm like, hey, here's just the head. take this design that you worked on, because you worked on the design, and like sculpt in the head. And he did that. I'm like, great. I took the head, I put in the file, and I gave him just an arm. I'm like, hey, here's an arm. Go at the arm. You know, he did the arm. I'm like, great. So I put the head and the arm on the body. I'm like, all right, here's just the figure with your sculpted head, your sculpted arm. Do the one half of the body, so the half torso and leg. And then he did that. And I'm like, cool, now go do the other side. You know, I gave him some notes and whatever. So we piecemealed that project for him. And Chad was very open to me doing that because, you know, I don't think a lot of people would be cool with you teaching a guy ZBrush on a very, like, the launch of a new line, you know? But I was like, Paul's the guy that's going to bring this where it needs to go. And I think it helps with a new artist, not just dumping a whole like, here's a full sculpt. It's like, hey, here's this, do this. All right, cool, you did that, great. All right, here's this, do this. This is great. And it's one thing that's been helpful, you know, with on my side, knowing ZBrush is whenever I work with these artists, I can take the files, look at it, work on it, send it back to them, or I can cut things up, send parts to other people, because I teach ZBrush and I use ZBrush. So that's really helped me with getting the most out of the team I get to work with on, you know, the MOTU stuff, Thundercats, the monster stuff. It's rarely one person doing the full thing. And sometimes it can be, you know, sometimes it can be. It's not like a rule I have, but it's like, it's nice when you can kind of control it a little bit more in that way, like the destiny of where it's going, instead of like, well, it's with this person, I'm stuck with that person. Or, not saying that sounds really shitty, but you know what I mean? Like, sometimes you just gotta, like a coach on a sports team, you just gotta take someone out, put someone else in for a bit, then get this other person on someone else on something.
I think that's quite important. Managing that is important. I mean, that's like that's like a general out in battle. That's what you do. You sort of, you know, we need a little bit less of this and a little bit more of that. We need to move away from this and chat. And they're the important decisions for sure. So I completely understand where you're going with that. Yeah. And I think the Gillman looks exceptional. And I'm excited to see where the rest of the line goes, especially that Krampus, because you know, I've got absolutely like no understanding on any of that, even the legends. So for me, I'm really excited to see where that's going. Obviously, I have attachment. I'm slightly Greek, so Medusa's a big deal. And sort of like, you know, I am. I've got like a Greek. I had a Greek Cypriot granddad, so I can hear him in my. Cool. I can hear him in my ear, sort of.
I thought that was code. I'm slightly Greek or something. I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah, well, it just means I'm charming, Dave. You know.
Yeah. So, you know, just real quick, Krampus. It's like, you know, Krampus and Santa would go out Christmas Eve, and if you were a good child, you would get stuff from Santa. If you were a bad child, Krampus would take you away.
Yeah, he'd whack you over the head with his sticks and toss you in his bag with all the other bad children and takes you to hell. It's like awesome. I remember when I'm watching it. 100%. I did my own little sculpt of Krampus years ago, and I remember I was FaceTiming with my niece, and she was really young at the time, and I was working on this Krampus sculpt, and she was with my mom, her grandma. It was my mom and my niece together, and she was like 5, I think, at the time, or 6. And my mom's like, "What are you working on?" I'm like, I don't know if it's good for. She's like, "No, just show us. It's probably fine." And I show him Krampus, and she like my niece loved it. She loves the Rancor. I got her into the Rancor too. And she's like, "Whoa, what is that?" I'm like, "It's Krampus." She's like, "What's Krampus?" I'm like, "It's basically the devil version of Santa Claus." My niece was like, "Whoa!" And my mom was like, "Oh shit, what did I do?" You know, I had to apologize to my sister later, but it's fine. You know, so it was fun. Devil Santa, love it.
It's funny with my son. He's 5, and you know what's really weird? It's like what scares them and what doesn't. It's so strange.
Yeah,
like really strange. Like he watches like all the Jurassic Park stuff. He loves the Godzilla stuff. He likes monsters. He likes dragons. He likes all this kind of stuff. This wouldn't freak him out at all, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, I can't remember what it was, but I showed him a video of a shoebill stork once. And it fucking terrified the shit out of him. He really doesn't like it, like, and I thought that was like harmless. It makes that machine gun sound with its mouth, you know, shoebill stork.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a terrifying prehistoric looking stork.
Yeah,
that does like a funny machine gun sound with it. And my son, he was like, "What was that sound?" So I showed him the video of it doing its thing with its beak, and honestly, he's been a little bit nervous around birds ever since. It's just like, I was like, this scares you, but you know, a T-Rex eating a man on a toilet doesn't scare you. Like, what is that? Where does that come from? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, people are weird, man. And even as adults, it's just like, I have a friend who's no longer with us, unfortunately, but he was like a really religious person, and he is an ex-con, found Jesus in jail and everything, and came out super Christian. But he was okay with his kids watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre and all this stuff. He's like, oh, they know that's fake. I'm like, all right, it's cool. Harry Potter was off limits because witchcraft is real. And I'm like, have you seen Harry Potter? It's like Leatherface, okay, Harry Potter. And I get there's everyone has their own like, moral bars.
Yeah,
that was when I was like, Butch, I love you, but you're an idiot. Like just straight up to his face. I'm like, love you, man.
You're robbing them now, man. You're robbing your children if they've not seen Harry Potter. That's awesome. Harry Potter.
I literally live like 20-minute walk from the Harry Potter world experience thing.
That's cool.
I've never been though.
Yeah, we're going soon, isn't it? Yeah, we're going in October to there. Actually, it's funny because I used to train a woman who worked on all them movies, and she built them sets. She built them all, so she was like part of like she'd come in and show me the designs and things she was working on. It was absolutely breathtaking, the stuff they were doing.
Nice.
Cool. I went to the set with Rob and my friend who worked on them, and they showed me a few of the things. I had no idea what they were. So when it was like a Lord of the Rings thing, do you know where the faces are under the water? It was something like that, and then there was like a big chess pieces and things. And there was just loads of things, but I never saw the films at the time, so I didn't remember.
You just basically wasted your time then, pretty much.
Pretty much.
You went around there, you looked around the load of stuff. You had no appreciation on a Star Wars. You just literally wasted the fucking time. Couple of heads under the water.
No, because I worked the day on Dark Knight. So I worked the day on Dark Knight, and then it was the same set, and it's before they turned it into the museum. And then I went around the Harry Potter stuff afterwards. I didn't care about it. I cared about the Dark Knight stuff, though. Anyway, moving on. Moving in then into the kind of these are then the Batman 66 pieces you did before as well. So, did you ever meet Adam West or?
Yeah, I was lucky enough. So what was the very first piece? Was Julie Newmar, Catwoman. And I'll make this kind of a quick story, but I was down in LA, and Trevor Grove, I don't know if you're familiar with him or not. He was the guy that sculpted all of these pieces. And down in LA, I had Julie's head. We had painted it, and I posted, I think, a picture on Facebook. And my friend Philip Cohen, my now friend, he sent me a Facebook message, and he's like, has Julie seen this? And I'm like, well, she has to have, because she had to approve it through Warner Brothers. And he's like, well, she lives in Brentwood. Call her at this phone number. And he gave me your phone number. And I was like, well, you're either a total like awful friend for giving her phone number out, or you're a freak. So needless to say, called it. Rings. I'm like, please don't answer. Please don't answer. Sure enough, the voicemail picks up. It's Julie Newmar. And as soon as I hang up, she calls back. And she says, be at my house at 1:30. Here's the address on XYZ. And so we packed up our Catwoman statue. We took that over. We took some of the Munsters I think I had also at the time. So Julie, was great to meet her. She's still a friend. Met Adam a couple of times, met Bird Ward. And then, my big thing was, Yvonne Craig Batgirl. I remember as a kid, Batman in reruns, and I remember saying to so many people as a young kid, no, there was Batgirl. And then in the mid 80s, it started rerunning again. And the end of season 2, beginning of season 3, Commissioner Gordon says to Bruce Wayne, oh, my daughter's in town. She's graduating college. And I was like, see, I wasn't making this up. Batgirl really exists. So love Batgirl, love Yvonne Craig. And, really sweet, but also sad story is we went to her house. We showed her Batgirl, the statue. She loved it. She said, you got the nose, the chin, everything's perfect. She agreed to sign my certificates for me because we were going to do like an autograph certificate. And and she didn't, obviously, she didn't tell anybody but her family that she had cancer. And all I remember, my husband Rick waking me up one morning, and he's like, "I've got bad news. Yvonne Craig died this morning." And she had recorded for me this, like the very last day we had Batgirl on sale. I was going to put out this recording of her being like, "Hey, it's Batgirl, Yvonne Craig. Go to tweeterhead.com and order your Batgirl." And when I listened to she said, "I'm going to call your phone 3 times. Don't answer. I'm going to leave 3 different versions." And they were all very not animated like I was hoping. And I didn't put 2 and 2 together at all, but obviously I never put those out. But yeah, she didn't get a chance to sign our certificates. And it was a super tragic thing that she passed away, but she was an absolute sweetheart up until, when we saw her, she had a wig on. I had no idea. But yeah, just an amazing woman.
What a soldier as well. Actually trying to help and do her part as well. It's probably why he was dealing with that illness.
Yeah, and the kind of the sad thing about it too is that I sent the certificates, and I think I got a picture, or maybe they sent it to me, but she had been practicing writing her name because she had lost the ability to write quite a bit. And so she was just practicing over and over and over. And, she thought she was going to let her fans down by not being able to do this. So, but she didn't let any fans down, like absolutely not. But those were the only people that were alive from the show. Everybody else, for the most part, had passed away.
And you met Adam too, right, Chad?
Oh yeah, Adam. Yeah, Adam. I met Adam a couple times. He signed my certificates for me. Yeah. So him, Bert, Yvonne, and Julie, they were the only surviving member. Well, and Lee Merriweather, but she was like from the movie. So
that's different who's that? That's is that Nick? Who? Did you say
Lee Merriweather? She was Catwoman in the Batman movie.
Yes.
Because Julie wasn't available. So it's kind of funny, that character. It's like 3 different actresses played her, in the course of 2 years,
Yeah, that's crazy. I always remember seeing like, oh, there's a third Catwoman from Batman 66. I'm like, who? Like, I remember like Julie, obviously, and then
Eartha Kitt.
Yeah, Eartha Kitt is amazing. I love Eartha Kitt. I totally was like, where'd this other one come from? I didn't know it was the movie. There you go. Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing about the movie is like, it was the first time that you had, his Batman's 4 mega villains, his arch enemies, right? And if it was Julie, Cesar Romero, Frank Gorshin, and Burgess Meredith,
that's what I'm thinking of. Burgess Meredith. That's right. Yeah.
That would have been amazing because Julie is so tall and statuesque, and she was the original Catwoman. So if you had the 4 of them together, that movie would be so much more popular than it is now. Just my opinion. But yeah, the 66 stuff was great. It was really like I said, it was perfect timing. It was when the 66 stuff was really hitting hard. And I think we did, what did we do? We did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think we did 8 or 9.
Yeah, that was like that was your foot in the door with Warner Brothers too, right? That was the first thing, was no one else is doing Batman 66, and that's how you were kind of able to get the DC license, or
Yep. Yeah. And that was when I was calling so much that they said, like, we shouldn't tell you this, but you're that guy. Whenever they say Chad's on the phone, it's always like, I'm busy. So, but
when did you make these? How long ago is this? How long ago?
This is probably, I would say, at least 9 years, if not 10.
Fucking no, you were like really ahead of the curve with this.
Yeah. You know what? Not really. It was
I think these are fantastic. I've never seen these before. They look like they could be brought out today. I don't think anybody would have any issue with any of the production of that. That looks fantastic. And the
sculptor Trevor Grove
as well is with the Catwoman with the partial safe. That's right out of today's sort of work. That's really, really something. Well done with that, man.
Yeah. So
thanks a lot.
Like Chad said, Trevor Grove is, I don't know. I think you guys said you weren't familiar with his work, but he was like a young gun. I think he was like 19 doing his first stuff for Sideshow, and he was like the likeness guy before digital.
Oh my god!
Really blew
And
up.
he's done tons of
likeness guy.
action figures. The guy is amazing.
Yeah, I think he does most of his work now for NECA, but he worked for Sideshow for years. He did the original Obi-Wan Mythos, the old Ewan McGregor and younger Alec. Yeah, it's like the
fantastic portraits.
Oh, wow. He did the whole piece traditional. That was all whatever wax he works in. So he's one of those guys. Him and Jeff Yeager for the longest time were like the likeness guys, and I would say Trevor was like the guy. Yeah,
Trevor is amazing. And I mean, Trevor sculpted, I think, Bryan Cranston from Breaking Bad for something. And Bryan Cranston, from what I hear, was like, that's the only kid I ever want to sculpt anything of me. And so what Trevor did is he ended up, I think his last huge project was those life-size Breaking Bad statues. Dave, is it Arizona they are, or New Mexico or somewhere?
New Mexico.
Where's the show? Is that where the show's set?
Yes.
Yeah. So he sculpted the life-size
monuments. Yep. So it's funny because Mandy, who was helping Tweeterhead for a long time with like convention logistics, and she did a lot of 3D print cleanup. Her and I did PowerCon the first year, went to Ohio, which was 2 years ago. And so we just didn't want to figure out how to ship everything there. So we took a road trip and we were going through New Mexico. I'm like, we got to find the monument Trevor sculpted. And we found the museum. I think it was a museum. We found where it was. And just by luck, we just swung the car. I'm like, just park here. Let me run. We parked. And it was like closed, but random dude just opened the door as we were coming up. And he's like, "Oh, are you guys here to see the new?" Because it was brand new. They unveiled it like a week or two ago. We're like, "Yes." We went in and I got a bunch of photos with it and stuff. I was texting Trevor like, "Dude, we're at the actual monument in New Mexico." And we continued on the road trip to Ohio, but it was on the way back from Ohio. So that was real cool seeing that stuff in person. But Trevor's great. You know, he was just genius.
He's amazing. And then, just a little side note for Adam is, there are some people in LA who, when you kind of hang out there, you're there, doing work, you meet a lot of the old guards who were, around in the old days of just doing work at the studios and everything. And Adam's manager was Fred Westbrook. And he was the ultimate Batman fan. And then another fellow that I met, who became a friend, Kevin Burns, he owns a company, or he owned, rest in peace, a company called Prometheus Entertainment. And they make all what's that TV show? Ancient Aliens or
yes. Ancient Aliens, that's right.
He produces all that. He produced a bunch of documentaries, but he was the #1 Monsters fan on the planet. And as a kid, he would draw pictures and send them to Fred Gwynn, because back in the 60s, you could just send something to the studio and they would actually get it. And then Fred Gwynn, who was Herman, started sending him drawings back. And Kevin ended up coming to LA, befriending them all. He basically took care of them all, up until their last days. And this guy was amazing, but he had I wish I had pictures I could have sent you today. In his living room, he had the big organ. He had the electric chair, Grandpa's electric chair. He had so much memorabilia from the Munsters. So it's just kind of cool when you meet people down there like that just, have a lot of that old stuff.
There's a lot of stories about Adam West as well, and about some of his parties, but we won't go into that right now.
Yeah, I have a not suitable for work that I can't tell, but it's okay.
There was also a thing talking about when with the stars as well. I know something happened with Sideshow where they were going to do a lot of publicity, and they had things ready to go for their Batman 66, and then he passed away, so they kind of they put it on hold, and I don't think they ever released it. Yeah.
Good to do that though. I'm glad they showed that classy element of that rather than try and capitalize.
Well, that's actually a cool little aside. So the first year, you're familiar with Olivia de Berardinis, the queen of pinup art, an amazing artist. She did David, what is it, Frankie Reborn statue.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you don't know who Olivia is, go to Google right now, like pause this and just go. But she's amazing, and she had a booth at Comic-Con, and she wasn't going to use it that year, so she let me use it. and that was when I was unveiling my Adam West Batman, and I actually paid him to come and pull the little curtain off of it, the little thing, and God, it was such a downer because Tweeterhead was, like, in our infancy, and maybe there were, like, 100 people there to see him pull it off, but it's like, if we had just done this, like, 8 years later, there would've been thousands of people, But,
Yeah.
it was pretty cool to have him. I can't believe I just remembered that, to have him in our booth kind of
Yeah.
unveiling this, Adam West statue.
But then, as we were saying, that was how you then got into kind of Warner Brothers and the DC side of things. So the pictures now we're going to look into, I mean, they're not in order because of the way Dave sent them to me, but
No, they're not in order because of the way that you've put them after Dave sent
the way
them
I
to you.
took
That's
them
what
after
it is.
Dave, yeah, so whatever, potato.
No, that's
For
not
once,
whatever.
it's not me. I'm so
Dave
happy.
seems to be organised, and I know you, so let's not pretend you are.
Yeah. So
Oh my
Dave's very
God.
organised, and I'm the total opposite. So I just
This
dropped.
is a sexy-looking piece, man.
Yeah, this is
Obviously,
actually,
once the big jacked guys with muscles come in, I'm more interested in what's going on because this is the kind of statues that I like. So weird.
Wasn't
Yeah,
this
it's
one
like-
that Brendan Guerrero was quite involved in?
yes, this is actually when I've known
Probably why I
Brandon
look so stiff.
I've known Brandon for a few years now, and through just online, and always liked, like, on statue form. Actually, not statue form, but like in Radd. I think it was in your guys' group. Whenever
was
he had
very
like
active in
feedback
the group,
or opinions on anything, he had really good ideas and really good pointed feedback. And he never came across to me like a shit talker. He always came across like, oh, if they did this way, it would have improved this and whatever. And not like in a know-it-all way either. I'm like, this guy knows his stuff. So when I found out he's a huge Green Lantern fan, I mean, I knew right away he was a big Daredevil fan. I was, we were talking Daredevil for a while. When I knew he was a big Green Lantern fan, I'm like, hey, we're going to work
shut
on
up about Stiltman as well.
or Animal Man. Oh my God, so many things. But yeah, so I hit him up like, hey, I'm at Tweeter right now. I'm going to work on this Green Lantern. I'd love your input on just like other Green Lantern statues you think nailed it, ones you think dropped the ball. So he helped out a bit with like, I think we have the design already, and this is an unfortunate one where, not to get too much in the detail, but basically we designed him as just the gun up pose, and we got it designed approved. Then at some point, Warner Brothers, their like approvals changed. Like, hey, going to now that the sculpt's done, you gotta give us a version without the gun, and that's gonna be your main marketing version. It's like, oh, it's like I wouldn't have done this pose if we would have, known that. But so I was talking to Brandon about like, I think we should do these two portraits. Like, yes, he's like, you got to work Badge in there. I'm like, I thought Chip was the more popular. Squirrel's like, no, Badge. I'm like, all right, cool, get Badge in there. And he helped me with like the specific green on his costume. Was very he was very particular about it. So we talked about like what pieces did well and what didn't do well. And
he probably mentioned the XM one because he was very vocal about the XM one being the wrong shade of green.
Yeah, so we talked quite a bit about that. He gave me the idea for the yellow lantern with a sniper rifle hole in it, the yellow energy coming out.
Is this Madge, is it?
Badge, yeah.
Badge.
Yeah. BDG. B-doink-DG. It's a weird, just like Chip. It's C-HP. But
and the scale of these, what are these coming in? Like 1/6?
They're big 1/6. They're
chunky.
They're not.
Are
they closer to 1/5, David? Are they?
They're like half. Chad, you correct me if I'm wrong. They're like halfway between. It's like they're in scale with like So this is a continuation, kind of like Chad and I talked about this being like Tweeterhead 2.0, and like we wanted these pieces to work as well as they could with the superpowers pieces, but a lot of the superpowers pieces were done traditionally, done digitally, but
it's a nightmare scaling with traditional works.
Scaling was hard. Some of the old files, someone else printed. We didn't have the information of the height, so I was like taking measurements off of I was trying my best to get them close. I think Superman works really good. I know people had issues with Flash being too big, too buff, or whatever, but I think he should be buff. But that's a whole nother thing. But just if you're off by like the tiniest, like 1/16th of an inch a couple times, you know what I mean? They're just like, oh, now you look at Flash next to like old superpowers piece.
Nothing can start an argument faster on any collecting group quicker than scale.
Yeah,
it is. I mean, I think like, and Dave could probably talk a little bit about this because he knows ZBrush so well. But it's like, I just don't understand why it isn't easier. It's the hardest thing. I think it is personally one of the hardest things in our industry is the scale issues, because you have to understand, like, the person that sculpted Superman might not be the same person that sculpted what other character, and so there's slightly different body types, slightly different everything. Like, it's I wish there was like a skeleton we could just start with or something that was always the same size,
But
because it's so difficult.
it's also to do with the pose as well, because obviously with Superman being raised in this way,
Elevated, yeah.
he comes off a different scale, but also it can be a bit more forgiving because he's up high. Then when you have someone, they could be a bit crouched over, and
Or seated, thrown
yeah,
pieces.
or thrown pieces are always way off. They're
Mhm.
always way off.
They're not. They're not always off. They just look off.
What pieces are you guys talking about?
Like
Thrown,
thrown,
like
like seated
Oh,
pieces.
yeah.
Anything that's seated, people put it next to something that's standing up, and they're like, "Look, it's fucking Welsh small. It's not right." And you're just like, it doesn't work like that. If you took a photo of a man standing next to a man of the same height, next to a man of the same height sitting down, you'd be like, "Oh, he's much fucking bigger than the guy standing up."
Yeah.
You'd be like, I bet if he stands up, he ain't. And it's really funny how that seems to work. And like Alex is saying, elevated pieces that are floating. This is the problem.
Also,
The only way to do it where you don't really have that, where it negates that argument, is they have to be completely museum. That's the only way. If you do them completely museum and they put them all next to each other, that's what Prime 1 have to its advantage. They don't need to worry about the creativity of the pose, because they just go, look, we'll stand them up and we'll have everybody in a line standing up, and then it will look right. And 9 times out of 10 with these movie pieces or Batman pieces, they do. But once you start getting into the creative force of flying, seated, running, whatever you're doing, it starts to mess with the scales anyway. So it's very hard. I completely agree.
Yeah, not to make excuses either. It's like, it's a thing you could always say, like, I have a literally large head. Like, when I have a twin brother, we're fraternal. If we're standing right next to each other, we get a photo, it looks like I'm in the foreground, he's in the background. He is a smaller than normal head. I have a bigger than normal head. I have a huge head, like most baseball caps. Like, when people are like, oh, you have a big head, try on my big head baseball cap. It's like a yarmulke on the back of I have like a Neanderthal
Oh my God.
size head. It's crazy. And so my hair doesn't help out either. I look like a bobblehead. But everyone has different size hands, heads, body lengths, whatever. I get everyone has their own idea of like what's an ideal like size comparison to these people. Because I don't even say like people get size and scale kind of like intermixed a little bit, but like size is literally like a number of how big something is, and scale is in relation to something else, right? So when you say 6 scale, like they should all, like a 8 foot tall person is gonna be very different in 6 scale than like my wife who's 5'1". You know what I mean? It's like, whoa.
Aren't you pretty tall, Dave?
Huh? Yeah.
Are you pretty tall?
I'm 6'3", so like I would call that average tall now, and I don't think it's tall. But
average tall.
Average tall. Okay.
Yeah. Pretty tall. Yeah.
David, you know I've got twin boys.
Yeah.
Did you know that? Yeah, I've got twin boys.
Are they? I forget. Are they fraternal or identical?
No, they're same as you. They're paternal now. They're not identical. No, although people look at them and say that they're very close, but I don't think they are.
I don't think they're close. No.
But it's funny that you should say that, because one of them's got a big head.
Dude, I joke it's probably like how we hogged the room in the womb. Like my head had more breathing room, and my brother actually had a concave chest that we had to get surgically fixed in high school. But like I joked that like my head was shoved into his torso, and all that stuff. But yeah.
My son got measured today, and his body was like the 25 percentile. So he was like, his body was like the smaller size, but his head was like 50 percentile. So he looks like a little fucking bobblehead.
Yeah,
mega mind.
If he stays that way, Alex, and he gets a complex, just have him talk to me. I'll help him out. Us big head people have to stick together. So what is another crazy thing? This is another complex I had. So I was going to animation school in Colorado and like learning 2D and 3D. And one of the intro 3D classes before ZBrush or anything existed, we had this program called Maya. And one of the exercises was take your head and 3D model your head. So we took all this like picture reference, took a front and a side, and you line it up in Photoshop, make sure it's all good. And how you do it is you would have to literally polygon model one side of your face. When you're done, you would just flip it and copy it over to the other side. You don't, like in ZBrush now, you can take one thing, be working on the two sides at the same time. So I was working on this side of my face, And I modeled out this whole side. I'm like, cool. And my photo in there. I mirrored it over, and my face looked like the most pinched thing ever. I was like, what? And I looked and like, oh, my jaw sticks out on this side. My face, like, it was like, oh, we're all ugly. Like, all of us have such weird asymmetrical things that, like, until you do that, you think you're okay, and you do that. That's a very humbling experience. I'll say that's like the true definition of humbling, is finding out how like messed up your face actually is. Like people's
it's the real selfie, right? What it really looks like. I have heard, and I've experienced some people that get digitally scanned, and they're like, that doesn't look anything like me, does it? And you're like,
yeah,
kind of looks exactly like.
My first job was at Jones Design for 3 years, and they had a scanning facility, and they would take that scan data and work it into their statues and busts. And how many times, I don't think I could say, but certain actors were like overly nitpicky about their stuff. It's like, yeah, when you change your expression, your face changes a little bit, but they would say the funniest stuff about their head was like, you just own it. Your head, like, just, they wanted an idealized version. That we're seeing that now with like TikTok filters, Instagram filters. Everyone wants like this beautification of their face, and I'm just kind of embracing my like aging monstrosity. You know, just every year I get like a little bit uglier. My forehead gets a little bit bigger. I don't have my dad bod gets a little bit more daddy, I guess, without kids. I just embrace it. Like, do whatever. I have a wife.
When you did that scan class, did you go home to whatever girlfriend you had and just say like, thank you? Like,
no, I had no girlfriend. I had no girlfriend. So.
Oh, dude, so you went over and cried into your microwavable pasta. That's awesome.
Oh my god.
Yeah, probably.
I'm gonna die alone.
It was college Geo. I think you knew what
It's so awesome.
Yes. In university I tried to use Maya and it didn't go very well.
Yeah, dude, I was learning Maya from an old man that didn't know Maya, and he only knew Lightwave. And for the people who don't know, Lightwave is what they use on old Star Trek. This is like one of the first CG like softwares that they used on like Star Trek Next Generation and before that. It's like crazy old. So it was a nightmare to learn. I didn't even learn it really well then.
Maya's really, really hard.
Yeah.
It just took so long when I was doing it. It just took forever.
I'm assuming that with this Wonder Woman that Chad had a little bit of influence or not.
So yeah, so Chad loves his women. Also, this is another one that comes up in the size scale debate, you know, because her size is tall, right? She's on a tall base.
Well, she's Amazonian. She's big, man.
It was, I will admit, it's one that got away from us. We actually, in the original 3D mock-up, we had Superman was the tallest, Wonder Woman's head was a little bit lower, and then Batman's head was like a little bit lower than that, but his arm was raised during a batarang. So it's like, oh, this all balances out. And then at the time, I wasn't running this project or the Batman at the time. I kind of like was jumping back and forth between projects. And not to say this wasn't like, oh, I'm relieving myself of like, you know, fault on this.
Yeah.
I could have caught this too. But by the time we finished the basis got a little bit bigger. And so when you pull her in, you size her, like literally I size foot to head on people first. And then when I open up the base, it's like, shit. And Chad's like, we can't. Wonder Woman we went through, we actually changed the sculpt like 3 different times. And he's like, we literally cannot change this again. We've like we worked with a bunch of different artists, all amazing. Yeah. I love Chad. Chad changed his mind on a couple of things. It was like trying to make all that work. And then, you know, I had an opinion on stuff and Chad wanted to make everyone happy. So it was like, it was a hard thing to find right. But then once we got to the final sizing output, it was kind of like, it was just too late. We're like, well, she's in scale. That's the most important thing. And yeah, her base is huge and it's unfortunate. So we actually worked in last second, the axe and because it has the shorter skyline because she's holding it this way. I think it's actually shorter than the sword. But I was like, Chad, we have to get like a swap out hand in there to like give people a skyline option. Chad and I we're trying to talk to the fact about maybe including a second base, but it was like gonna jack up the cost so much. We're gonna do it as like a surprise thing. So people could fit it.
Oh, yeah. You're right. It was like, I mean, the base is super cool though, but no, it's nice. Like, you know, but also, you know, the thing too is with a female character, like you want them to have beautiful long legs and everything. And, but yeah, I think, I'll be excited, you know, when we get around to the next Wonder Woman to kind of, learn what we've learned what we've learned, to get back but I mean, she's a beautiful piece. I mean,
It's a
there's no one that can
beautiful
say she's
statue.
not gorgeous,
It's a beautiful statue. I see what you're saying there, David, about the axe. Yeah, it's clever.
Maybe the sword, actually. Maybe I forget the order. It
it's the axe.
Whichever one's smaller was the one we shoved in at the last second.
I think it was the sword. I think it was the sword.
It looks to me, just looking at these, your eye line, it looks to me like the axe makes her look just a slightly short. If I look at all three of them in the line, I would say that the right is the shortest of the three, even though they're all the same size. So I think, it tricks you a little bit. I mean, it's a beautiful piece, man. It's definitely got that pin-up vibe to it. It's got power. She's sexy. And to be honest with you, I don't think Wonder Woman, I think a big Wonder Woman isn't the worst thing in the world. No, it's not like when XM fucked up Mystique. It's not the same. Mystique, you can't get away with it.
The third
you can't get away with it.
Whatever. Yeah, that was, I remember hearing about it. I didn't see the photos, but I remember hearing that's one of those, like,
if you're going to get a scale issue or any sort of proportional issues happen on a female, you want it to be Wonder Woman, bro. Because she's an Amazonian. I don't know what she is, but I reckon she's got to be big. What is she, 6'6", 6'5"? She has to be.
I think we actually made her height the exact same as Superman. So the scales on point, it's just the size of the base is what got away from us. Was like so by the time we got to the finals,
if you take her off the base, you're kind of like, it looks fantastic. It's once you just start raising everything up, because something we haven't really talked about yet, and maybe we'll get around to, is like, the more people collect, and hopefully when we get into my little Superman bust, whatever, we'll talk about it. But, people are running out of room,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
So Harley was a fun one because she had to work with Joker. Like, there's I think after Wonder Woman, we're like, all right, we have to triple check Harley like a million times, because even the size of the blocks and the wood on the base wanted to match Joker's wood on the base. So if the wood match and then she was too big, it's like, oh, now we have to scale her down. But then all the teetering stuff all interconnected. So it was like a ripple effect. We actually went back and forth to make sure she was perfectly scaled and sized to work with Joker and be that was a real fun one that I thought complimented Joker in the best way. Actually, that's probably not to be biased, but it's probably my favorite Harley Quinn that I've seen made. And I'm really proud of how this came out.
I mean, Joker was a big moment for Tweeterhead, really, wasn't it? Your Joker piece was a big moment.
I mean, I don't think anybody was expecting that from us.
I think, being in the industry, being around, and for as long as I have been, you have these moments. Like, all companies have these moments, and I can probably remember most of them for all the companies. And I think the Joker one was when everyone went, "Who the fuck are these guys?" Like Tweeterhead. Is that Tweeter? Who are that? Like, that people just sat up and sort of went, okay. Like, it's a little bit like a new sheriff in town moment. That moment, the quick and the dead moment. You're a bit like, who the fuck is he? Because he's quick. You better make sure that.
But I really think, I will say, like, between me and Dave and a couple other people we were kind of like working with on this Joker, I really do think it was a perfect storm, because everyone brought something, and there's so much to that. Like, it wasn't my idea to have the cowl and the cape, in the back of the chair with a big knife stuck in it. I had little tidbits that I added. I think what I added to that piece was he was going to be on the floor at one point. And I was like, I had just watched the British Bake Off, or what's it called, British Baking Show. And, they were doing and they were doing a topsy-turvy cake. And I thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool if his throne was just about to, like, even more than it is now, about to, like, fall off the back of the pile of money or whatever.
Yeah, I remember it was the original design worked on by Tom Yolson through John Rasmussen, who was helping us, like, with this idea. He had this idea of, like, I want Joker in a chair, like a new on throne. But then the design was literally like the chair was on the floor, and he had all this cool clack around him and stuff. And then Tiago Zanabini, who was the poor unfortunate soul that had to sculpt this damn thing. It was his first project for us. So it's like, oh, let's give this guy a really easy one. So, and Tiago's an amazing artist. He actually did my favorite of the Legendary Beast pieces. He was I think the primary sculptor on the Hulk piece. He's great. And so when we were working on the Joker piece, we got to a certain point with the sculpt, and Chad was like, dude, something isn't working about this. I feel like it just needs a ton more stuff under that chair. I'm like, all right, let me take it. So when Chad said like a pile of stuff, like I photoshopped like there's this mound of garbage, and then I just photoshopped him on top of it, and I just kinked it. Like, it was just like, as much like he just like put it like brump and just, and then showed it to Chad, and he was like, yes, like I think that's when we were talking about the thing you were talking about, Chad. And then we were just like, all right, that's got to be money bags, got to be this. We got to, like, that's where, and then John saw it and he's like, oh, yeah, what if this? And Tiago contribute ideas. It was just like that moment where we knew, like, oh, this went from a, okay, it's cool to, oh, shit, we have something now.
Yeah.
And it was,
like when you put it up for pre-order or you showed it and then people said, oh, my God, I wish it was core scale. If it was core scale, I would order it. And then you put it out in core scale. Do you feel that people then kind of went with what they were saying? Because you always hear people say like now Sideshow releasing a 3rd scale Wolverine, everyone's going, oh my God, I wish it was core scale. If it was core scale, everyone would say another core scale Wolverine. Did people actually place the order for it? Did it sell very well?
Yeah, it did really well. And I think, again, going back to our relationship status and how open we are, and this idea with what we tried with Sideshow was releasing some of our stuff at 6 scale and also quarter scale. And Joker was a big test because it was like that piece was going to be ginormous, right, at quarter scale. But it did really well, very successful, and they're both really impressive pieces. But but I think the thing that I love the most about it is there are just Easter eggs all over that thing. If you could look at it and look at it and look at it and not see some of them.
And that's
because
something
Harley
else.
the Harley wasn't released in core scale, though, was she?
She was.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
she was.
sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep,
So
yep, yep.
Joker was after the fact, so we did him separately. Then Harley was at the same time. We put her up, and she was quarter and 6th, and so was Wonder Woman. She was quarter and 6th. So
Alex, make a statement as more of a question, bro, not like that something that you're not sure that you know.
It was a question, but yeah. I said
he come across like, you didn't do that, did you? Like, yeah, we did. Yeah.
But no,
it's a companion piece. It's a sort of it's a piece that definitely was made with the idea to go with this, which is a shame because I don't really see it together enough really in the in the community. I would like to see it more together. Do you know what would have been awesome though if you had the opportunity to be able to take her off and sit her on the arm on the the top of the chair? Wouldn't that have been fucking cool? If you could take out that cowl and stick her sort of in the middle or onto one side, just sort of on the throne like that. That would have been brilliant, wouldn't it?
That would have been
Sorry,
cool.
I wasn't there for that.
I mean, like now that you're saying it, I mean, obviously I never thought of that, but now that you're saying it, if I could literally take her and put her where his left hand is on the arm of the chair, it would be a pretty cool dynamic,
Yeah, definitely.
Cool piece.
I don't even know that's a great idea, Gio. And the thing I think a lot of people don't realize too is that sometimes, like when I think this might have been done at 2 different factories. I'm not sure, but sometimes you do things at 2 different factories to try and get this thing to work with that thing. It's like it's all got to be at the same place to really work. I mean,
sure. It needs to be checked. For sure.
Yeah, and
it's an after the fact sort of problem that you definitely wouldn't want to take on. You would have to go with the initial design with Joker and Harley almost simultaneously, wouldn't you? I think your DC line is incredibly strong. I mean, I love these concepts. I think they're great. What was your thinking with the Ivy, and what was again the throne piece? Did Joker initiate that because he was so successful and so popular? You thought, no one's done an Ivy really on throne at this point. Did you think that would be a good idea?
I think she was way before Joker. She was like, I think. Dave, I don't know if you had come on board yet when I did that first Ivy.
I was at Sideshow still. So this is the variant. So the original one you worked on with Jack, and
yep.
And then eventually we're like, oh, we should do a variant of this, and we were just gonna do a paint variant, but DC was like, oh, you got to cover her more because things have changed. So we actually had to go back to sculpt. And so if you actually have the original Ivy and this Ivy, the original Ivy has a little bit. A little bit more legs showing, a little bit more cleavage, like barely anything, but we had to add more leaves to her. So we actually took the tooling copy, worked with this amazing traditional sculptor, Chris Wooten, and he hand sculpted, added back in leaves to match. So we could just go right back to the factory. We couldn't go back to digital file because the sizing. We
Awesome.
want to make sure the sizing matched identically. So,
but I think like for Ivy, like this one specifically is like, she, that character is very seductive, very alluring. Like, that's her MO, right? So I'm like, God, what are we gonna do with her? And I always think of this character as just very relaxed, very confident. Not necessarily like Catwoman, who's gonna kick ass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then Harley, who's the wild card. That's a cool like way to think of the triptych of them. Is they're three very different.
Completely, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, sort of like exactly. And with Ivy, it's an assurity, isn't it? She's got like that confidence in her.
Yeah, I mean, she has. I mean, she has got. She has nothing to worry about. I mean, seriously, you know what I mean? Like nothing to worry about.
Taxes. Doesn't care about taxes.
No, she has nothing to worry about. She will. Yeah, she will kill you in a heartbeat.
I'd be so dead.
Yeah,
it'd be worth it. It'd be so worth it. It's fine.
But it's funny, like as much as I love the original, I definitely think this is my. I don't know if you're in the green-skinned Harley camp or the flesh-toned, but I am definitely green-skinned. I think this one.
I prefer the green.
Yeah, I do too.
Contrast just works a little better with the red. I don't know why that is. It shouldn't, but it just really does. I'm always. I had the Sideshow Ivy, the Green with Envy one. I had it for a while, and I loved it. I mean, that was again. That's a bit of a pin-up, isn't it? That one.
I can tell you why the green and red work so well with each other, because they're literally complementary colors. As a colorblind man, I had to actually study how colors work and stuff, and it's just like, when you combine blue and yellow, you get green, and on the opposite end of the spectrum, you get red. So that's why there's your answer, Gio.
Dude, don't talk this way to me. Too sexy talking and teaching me shit. Don't do that to me now. Literally, I married the smartest person I met in my wife. She's just like, when she talks to me and teaches me shit, I just fancy pants off. I don't know why. It's a weird thing. I obviously had things for teachers when I was at school. I don't know what that's about, but we'll get into
I'm a teacher, man. Let's get together sometime. What are you doing this weekend? Fly on over. Why don't you come up and see me sometime? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I'm getting it. Don't teach me too much, Dave. It's not good.
Crypto, making a move on my man. What's going on here? Yeah. I didn't even know Brendan just said it as soon as I said it as well. Brendan Guerrero came in as well.
King of Dream.
Crypto was a fun one though. I'm a dog lover. I had Luna at the time, and she since passed away. I have my two dogs I have now, and like they're my children. So when Chad was like, I really want to do crypto, and I want to work with Superman, and we can celebrate International Dogs Day and all this stuff. And Chad's a huge pet person too. He has a cat, Dee Dee, and I had Luna at the time. And when I was working on this sculpt, I was working with Polina, who's an amazing artist too. It's her first project with us, and she has a really skinny dog as well. So we kind of like put a bit of her dog, a bit of Luna into it, and then Guillermo Barbarillo, who did our Superman, I gave it to him at the end, just kind of like push a little bit more stylistically, so it worked with the Superman, the bases worked, all that stuff. So it was kind of the bent ear on Crypto is based on my Luna dog, who's no longer with us. She always had like one erect ear, one floppy ear, so that was kind of my nod. And then when I was working on the original teaser asset for this, like the announcement asset, it was literally the day before Luna passed away, and like so it was kind of like a surreal moment, like working on that, putting it out there, and then saying goodbye to my dog, and like and all the photos are like of a dog flying in the clouds. I was just bawling my eyes out. I'm like, what is this universe? Yeah.
I had a pit bull. I had him for about 14 years, and when he passed, my wife decided to cheer me up to take me. She took me to Dubai, and I stayed at the Atlantis Hotel in Dubai, right? Like proper luxury trip for like 5 days, and I spent 5 days crying. So it was like shit. And then I came home and like literally bought a French bulldog like within a week of being home, because he was just like, I need to get this guy a dog before he fucking loses all control of reality here. I'm like, it's a weird thing, yeah. So obviously you might be able to hear him snoring behind me. It's funny because when I don't do the chats, he don't come in here. I don't understand it for the fucking life of me. He never comes in here. And then I do the chat, I start the
very
cameras and that, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll come in, fuck it."
He likes the sound of my voice. That's it.
Love the dogs. Love the dog.
Yeah, my dog abandoned me
And
when
cats.
I started doing the chat. He abandoned and went in the other room. So,
Yeah,
we got another streaky Chad for you, or
I know.
who's the Red Lantern cat? I forgot that. We gotta do more like.
Oh yeah, what was that little devilly looking cat? I don't know.
You've definitely got to use a little bit of your own inspiration, haven't you? You've got to sort of like, you know, it's a nice thing that, you know, you've got something out there has a little bit of a nod to your dog, you know, and you know, that's
totally.
a lovely thing to be able to do.
You
almost make them live. You almost make them live forever, somewhere else. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Be that guy and literally make it a white version of my dog, because I love Paulina at it. It's kind of like I wanted people to like just, and obviously crypto changes breeds slightly here and there in the comics, but I wanted to be very much crypto, not like because my dog was a Mexican hairless, and so they're super sleek. They look like Anubis, like they're super sleek, pointy ears.
Yeah, I know them. Yeah, it's almost like the Saluki. It's like a Saluki with no hair, right?
It has no hair. Yeah, but mine had hair. Yeah, so she had hair. She was 1 in 6 has hair, and it's like a defect. So,
okay, gotcha.
Kelly, my now wife, she actually had Luna since she was a puppy. So when I started dating Kelly, Luna was 6 years old, and then Luna became my dog. She actually went with me after a point. Like Kelly and I, when we started like dating, and then we moved in together, and then she got a job at Sideshow too, so we'd carpool to Sideshow, and it was like a 40-minute drive each way. And so when you're there for 40 minutes, 8-hour day, 40-minute drive back, it could be up to 10 hours. You would leaving the dog alone.
Yeah.
And we'd want to go out and have a date night every once in a while. So, you know, when we have a date night plan, I just hit up my boss. I'm like, hey, is it cool if I bring in Luna one time to try this? I was like, is she chill? I'm like, dude, she's so chill. She came in. He loved her. Everyone at work loved her. So I started to ask, like, you know, hey, once every 3 weeks, can I bring her in? Hey, once every 2 weeks. Hey, once. Eventually, Tom's like, dude, you don't have to ask, just bring her in every day. I'm like, awesome. So Luna went with me every day to Sideshow for like three years or so, and she was like the dog. Like, so in the design foyer, it was like Tom's office, another person's office, my office, then the art team room, and then there's a foyer to the hallway. And so Luna's bed was out there, and the hallway was a long hallway, and it was right off from the kitchen. So anyone that walked to the kitchen would see Luna, like her bed was right there. And anyone that, you know, we all have our days at work where work can be tough or we're dealing with stuff. And anyone that was having a bad day would come see Luna, and they would leave a better person. And it was
therapy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've got to be honest. I think all companies should have one. I think everybody should have one. Because it is a scientific fact that they bring down your stress hormone anyway.
Yeah.
And you have a symbiotic relationship with them. It's funny, actually, Chad. You know why? Because cats don't do that, lad.
Cats apparently
with a cat, you stroke a cat, nothing actually happens to them whatsoever.
Apparently, if you pass away, your cat will start to eat you within 15 minutes.
I have no doubt.
Yeah. And
I have no doubt. I was not here last night. That's why some of these images came so late. I came rushing back and walk in, and there's a dead mouse in our hallway, a dead mouse in our bedroom. This girl is like a murderer.
Killer.
They are.
Yeah, you know what, though? You don't need the emotional desperation of an animal. That's what people with. I mean, I've got a lot of friends who have cats, and they say exactly that. Can't deal with the neediness of that. The dog under it at all. Like, honest to God. So the one thing I miss about having my pit bull was the fact that he had no interest of any other people. So when I'd be out in the street, like I remember I bumped into my brother-in-law, taking him for a walk, and he talked to me for about 5 minutes. The dog literally fucking got up, turned his back on my brother-in-law, and sat down facing the opposite way rather than look at him. Just didn't say to me, like, honestly, this guy, can we go? Can we move? It was just like, yeah, that's my type of dog, man. It was just like, I'm not talking to you at all.
They've told me I can bring my dog to work, and they're going to regret that big time.
Alex, you might go back to Aquaman real quick, because speaking of animals and pets, an early concept for this, which this is another one that Brandon helped me out on a lot, but the original Photoshop of this had 2 dolphins coming out of the base and flying fish on the water, and Chad was like, no. I think it's a better piece without all the extra clack, but it was kind of a fun thought. Like he you know, he has.
I like the fish idea. I like the flying fish idea.
It would have been the most paint apps would have been on those flying fish to make them look right, and then they'd be so small and delicate. So that was the main reason why Chad didn't want that. So I was really trying to argue the dolphin there, and
I saw them. I saw some flying fish in the Maldives, and they were absolutely mesmerizing, stunning looking things. They would have looked great on there with the purples and the color spec. So I would have definitely kept them, but that's me.
Chad brought up some good points too about production costs, because we wanted this to be like the most broad appealing Aquaman, and we both were worried, would those things pull an additional buyer in, or would it push them away, be like, oh, I love it, but has a dolphin head?
I don't know if it'd have either effect, to be honest. Personally, I don't think it would put them off or make them buy it. Certainly wouldn't with me. I mean, this is a very dynamic Aquaman as well, and you've went like comic on it, which is awesome.
This piece is amazing.
I'm really proud of this piece. I know it didn't sell as well as Chad and I were hoping. It's kind of like one of those things, like when you think of DC, there's like, you know, Batman's at the top in terms of popularity with Joker. And when it gets to the Justice League, it's like, cool. Obviously, like Wonder Woman's way up there and Superman's way up there. And then, you know, Aquaman, Green Lantern, like almost like Flash, but like, you know, not as many people showed up for Aquaman and Flash as we were hoping. I get Flash can be a little bit polarizing, but I thought this Aquaman, to me, I'm like, I couldn't imagine in my mind just like a better classic comic book Aquaman.
I don't think they've ever sold well for anybody.
The Sideshow Premium Format original one actually did pretty good for them, but that was
really that's a horrible statue, bro.
Well, it was done at a different time and everything, but I'm really proud of like what we did with this one, and you know, it's one of those things.
I like your one. I like your one better.
Thanks. I like it better. I mean, it's just like it's Guillermo Guillermo is just like one of our top dogs. You know, he just crushed the Superman. He came in to help like make the John Stewart, which was sculpted by Keith Kopinski, who I love. We just felt like, you know, we wanted John Stewart to work with Superman, so we just had Guillermo come in and help like tweak it a little bit. So there's still Keith's DNA in there a little bit, but then they worked together, and then Guillermo did Aquaman and Flash, and I think it's just like one of my favorite like superhero lineups. I think the Aquaman, perfect level of dynamic, works for the character. I know some people thought like he should have been museum to work with the other pieces, but we have Batman in a pseudo dynamic pose and everything too.
Yeah, it's good to vary it up. I mean, what were your challenges with the Two-Face? I mean, this looks like a fantastic. I'm seeing shades of the animated series with this. I don't know if that's just me.
No, that definitely was the inspiration. You know, that outfit. Like, if you look at Two-Face from the comics, like, I don't know if he was ever in white and black. I think he was always in like this brown. Like, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong. It was like brown, and I don't know what the other color was of his costume.
It's all over the place. It's like Two-Face to me is like one of the. I think with like certain characters, like Superman, you'd be like, this is a definitive Superman, classic red trunks, yellow S, and the red cape certain length, whatever. Certain characters, I think there are like, oh, that's the version. With Two-Face, there's like 80 million. Like, it feels like every artist drew him different. You know, obviously you have like the live action movie, couple different live action movie takes. To me, I always for a lot of my DC stuff, I go to the early 90s animated stuff, whether it's Batman animated series or Justice League. And so I always think of like black and white, you know, I know like clean, I always dug. I know some people do it like all tattered on one side and whatever, but yeah, like you said, I think sometimes it's like brown and green, or and colorblind guy jumping in, I'm not sure what colors they are, but and they had patterns and weird textiles and stuff too.
And I think the animated version of Two-Face was like the absolute most classic version. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it definitely stays with you if you've seen it, doesn't it? It's one of them. He's definitely one of the characters. There was a question below that was like, you know, did you consider like the Tommy gun sort of like look? You know, was that a licensing thing, or did you just want to go with the, you know, hand in the pocket, cool, suave kind of lawyer look, and then the other, you know, with the coin?
I'll let
I think we can safely say there are certain things you just can't do. We talked earlier about John Stewart with the gun, you know, and they wanted us to change it from a sniper rifle to a more sci-fi gun to, hey, main marketing image, just don't show the gun. And I get their sensitivities. So basically, just so people know why there's different sensitivities with collectibles and movies and everything like that. I had a good talk with my buddy who is head of licensing at Marvel, because when I was at Sideshow, we had a debate about like, you're doing this in the movie, but you won't let us do this in statue form. So with movies and video games and television, they have outside rating companies like the MPAA for movies saying, this is R, this is PG-13, this is PG, this is G. With consumer products, there isn't anything. So in big companies like Disney, they view it all has to be age friendly then, unfortunately. It's not like, but obviously there's like a $600 statue aimed at adults, or Warner Brothers has kind of become like, same thing where it's like, hey, it's got to be, there's no outside rating agency for any of this stuff. So if there was, it'd be a little bit different where, we probably could get away with doing certain things that they can do in movies and video games, because we know they can be extremely violent. And I would argue that that's more impressionistic on kids than like an adult statue collectible on a shelf up there. Like what happens in comics, kids can read comics, but it's just the thing we signed up for. And sometimes it's a moving target. Sometimes we can't do something, and then a year later you can again after your thing's shipped. It's frustrating, but the people we deal with directly at Warner Brothers are awesome. They always try and help us steer the ship, give us warnings best they can. But every once in a while, there's things that go 8 layers above them to,
Yep. And like, and with all the gun violence, especially in the US, like we're not like, oh my God, we want to make every statue we do holding a gun. But, sometimes it just is that character, you know what I mean? But, but we have to understand that, there have been a lot of people affected by gun violence in this country. And, where do you draw the line,
I say no line. Put it all on the tape. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, so it's something like we learn, and sometimes we get improved design, and then after getting to sculpt again, like we talked about the Green Lantern, like, hey, you just gotta find a way to make this work. And it can be frustrating, but being mad only gets you so far. You got to be creative, work with this stuff. Yeah. We don't own Batman, so it's like you can only be so mad. It's like
the argument will always remain, David, that if your licenses tie you up too tight, man, fan art people will make it, and then therefore your market will suffer as a result. And then people do need to be aware that that strangulation, that sort of rigidity, that will affect people going between a fan art piece and your piece, because you understand what I'm saying? Because there are people that will see, like, and someone put in a comment there, quite rightly so, they said, wait a minute, so like guns are no good, but matches and petrol's fine. See what I'm saying? And they definitely have an argument. They totally have an argument in that respect. And I definitely feel, and I do believe that it can be the higher ups that really will make it so that fan art pieces will always have life, because they'll make a smoking Gambit, they'll put a cigar in Logan's mouth. They're all iconic things that we all grew up with and understand and register with the character, and we're the ones going to spend the money. So it's one of them ones where you look at it and you're just a bit like, I'm not a big Two-Face fan, but obviously somebody there is like knows the character and is like, oh yeah, no,
the other argument as well, though, is from the bigger picture of it, if you look at a company like Disney or Warner Brothers, the statue side of things is such a small percentage of what the money is.
Yeah, but so why not have the middle ground where, like David was just saying, which is perfect, you have it, but you just don't show it. You can do a picture with a silhouette, say he's got it, and say it will come with a Tommy gun or whatever else, but you don't need to show it.
So some things are okay with that, and some you can't include things at all. Like that, it's just, Joe, you're singing to the choir. Like, we'd love to, again, character specific where it makes sense. We're not looking to like shove blood, alcohol, cigarettes, and violence and tits and everything. But it's like there's a reason why we haven't done like, because it's like literally like there's no way right now, unfortunately, like that we could make Starfire the way we all I think of classic Starfire. Like Chad was able to make one with superpowers, and times change, and now there's certain rules where you just couldn't do that because the amount of skin that's showing, and we're like, that's why we had to change Ivy a little bit.
Yeah. So it's nice to know it. It's also nice for the people listening to understand some of the literal hoops you're jumping through to get things across. Because I think people don't realize as much as they do. They think, I feel sometimes that the community thinks that you've made this decision based off your preference rather than what you're restricted to. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. And
Yep.
I would say, because I've been asked about the customs fan art market a lot, and I think my line in the sand is if it's a few friends getting together that want something, they pour their money together and commission a thing for just them. That's one thing. As soon as it becomes a company, pre-sales, going to factories in China, that's where it's just like that. That's where I draw the line of like completely unacceptable. But I get like at the end of the day, consumers have a right to buy whatever they want to buy. You know, it's not like, hey, it's illegal for you to buy a bazooka, right? It's not like, oh, there's a life-threatening thing. It's like, dude, if someone wants this and someone's making it and they can buy it, I don't blame them. I'm never going to tell someone, don't buy something you want. It's just like, who am I to say that? You know, it's just
I think we can all safely say, hey, we all want a bazooka. There's no doubt about it.
I want to drive a tank. You know, I want to.
So I saw there what Chad did where he turned the camera. I saw
was it his cat?
My little baby.
The cat shot. I saw that.
Baby.
Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful.
There's Dee.
Is that like is that a tortoiseshell one? Yeah, he's tortoiseshell.
Yeah, she's a faded calico.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
What we're going to do is,
I told you.
this actually leads into the DC.
The bus
releases. So this is from the bus into the DC stuff. So this is actually one of your new lines as well, which is the 1/3 bust line. And this. Do you want to discuss this one?
Yeah, you know what? So for me, I always think like, sometimes like it gets a little overwhelming when you're designing something and you're, oh my God, what's the base going to look like? How big is this thing going to be? It's so much work. Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, I personally love busts, I think, because, from that, waist up, that's the character, that's the chest logo, that's the face, the cape, whatever. And so I really wanted to give this a shot. I reached out to our friends at Sideshow and said, hey, that base that you guys did for those life-size Superman and Batman, I love those. Any chance you'd let me borrow that? They're like, absolutely, go for it. And so, we did Superman.
Chad, real quick too. You also talked to Sideshow because they did the last 3rd scale bust. They did a Wonder Woman, a Batman. So we want to make sure, like, hey, we want to play in the sandbox. Is it cool?
Yeah, you cool.
Yep.
Yeah, gotcha.
And also, like, for me, there are characters that I love that wouldn't necessarily, and this is not a big secret, they wouldn't sell as a 6th scale or 5th scale or quarter scale statue, but as a bust, they will absolutely sell. And so, really the sky's the limit with these busts. And we've told people there's never more than 350. That's the edition size. I'm trying to keep them all at $300, except Doomsday is going to be a little bit more because he's huge. But this is really something that I am super passionate about as far as just like really taking the essence of what that character is, compartmentalizing it into a specific area of the body from the waist up, and then just doing like a really beautiful representation. And, I don't pat myself on the back too often, but I will say that Guillermo just killed the Superman. He is super.
This is a stunning bust. There's no question. I definitely agree with you. I think you've captured the iconicness of the character there. I think you look at the pose and you look at what you're presenting and you definitely know instantly that's Superman. That's definitely what you get. And you're getting stoic, you're getting hero, you're getting, strength, power. Yeah. It's all there. It's very cool, man. It looks great.
And
I think one of the things that
Chad should pat himself on the back. I thought this is what you're going to say is I was very against busts, and not like I hate them or refuse to do them, but just like I was a super skeptic of it all. And Chad was really passionate, and he just did it, and it sold really well for us. So Chad definitely like saw this opportunity and this sliver of something that fans wanted or collectors wanted, and they responded. And it does, like Chad say, open the doors for some other characters, and we can, hey, try this character as a bust, does great. We can do it as a statue or vice versa. And so Chad really saw this one through, and he really owned it. And I was not helping him, so he owns it. Yeah.
But it actually helped in a way because it made me really want to make it so perfect. And like even little things like, and this is just me as a collector. I always feel like Superman, like obviously in the 1930s when they were designing Superman, nobody was thinking about how his cape transition to his costume was going to work as a statue, right? It just was
Yeah.
like coming out of that blue. And it's whenever you have a separate piece that you're just sticking on there, it's so difficult to make it look like it is like really, really perfect. And so what we ended up doing is like we sculpted that coming out of his chest, and in the back there's a seam that'll be patched up. But I think it might be one of the first times the cape has ever been kind of sculpted in there, you know.
What you're saying, sorry, what you're saying in there is that what you've done is your attachment starts at the clavicle, and then you basically loop it over that way, as opposed to it looping into the back and then just sitting on the front and not being connected to anything.
Yeah, like when you get this, like the actual cape piece where it joins up with the part that, is connected to his shoulder blades, it's down by where the S is on the back of the cape, and then it's all patched up. So all of that you're seeing now in that picture is sculpted on.
Awesome. And also, I have to say, I think the 1/3 with a 1/6 will really work as a companion. That's a good scaling, isn't it? It's almost like 1/4 and sort of like 1/2 or like one life size sort of like mixes together, or 1/3 and life size. You've almost got that sort of nice sort of mix of scales. If your statues are like a big 1/6 and you're going to put them with a big 1/3, like a 1/3 bust, that's a great combination, no?
I don't know. We'll see when that Superman gets delivered. But like, I feel like they're really dynamic. I mean, they're big pieces. I mean, I think we're going to talk about Doomsday a little bit, and that piece is just gigantic.
Oh yeah, that's so cool. Fucking love Doomsday, man.
That's a digital ZBrush render with some Photoshop color. So it's not the actual piece; it's actually in paint right now. But that's like a rough size comparison. It might be a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller when we actually get next to Superman. But we're gonna very much photo shoot the two together. But yeah,
that's looking mint, man. That looks awesome. Can't wait to see what that actually comes out like sculpt wise. Who sculpted it? Can you say?
Tiago Zenabini.
Oh, Tiago, yeah.
Did the brunt work on it. Geo Nakpil, who worked on our trap jaw, he came in, did some anatomy edits too, and some little tweaks and whatever. But yeah, Tiago is the main sculptor on it, and Matt Wessel, who does our social media, definitely came in. Like, he's a super classic Doomsday fan, because I can't help myself if I were to work on this, I'm a monster guy. I'd want to like go a little bit crazy with stuff, but Matt was very good at because I don't think Chad's as big of a fan as Doomsday, right, Chad? Because like not as much of a classic character, so it's cool to see someone like Matt come in, like what Brandon did with other stuff, and really help us kind of push it into, no, this is like the death of Superman, Doomsday. So
yeah, I think unfortunately for me, that was a point in my life when I wasn't really reading comic books, the whole death of Superman. But and I mean, I will tell you, like, this picture, it honestly doesn't do it justice, because when I got the print, I mean, his fist was basically like just slightly smaller than mine. I mean, the guy is a beast. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah. So again, just a rough, like, digital
a great reveal. A great. Thanks for sharing that with us, man. Looks
when is this likely to go up for pre-order?
A couple weeks.
Oh wow. Okay.
Hoping end of April. We have one more surprise piece coming up, and that goes up first. It's just finishing photography, and then Doomsday to be finished paint this weekend, and we're gonna get him up hopefully last weekend of April, if not the first weekend of May. But we're gonna try and stick to April best we can.
Yeah. And then we're hoping to like just juggle these guys, like hero villain, hero villain, hero villain. So I don't think it's any secret because we've talked about it, but the next two bust up are Batman and Mr. Freeze.
Yeah, look at that. I love that sort of concept, because you're basically, you're dotting those I's and crossing those T's before you even start. So that's because people will want that. That's exactly how I would want it.
Yeah.
I'm quite lucky at the minute with the Master of the Universe line, because the villains is what I collect, it's what I want. If I was going to go after like the busts and things like that, something like as a companion pieces to anything I have, I really like the idea of you basically you already sort of like closing that off. Like, here's Batman, here's his nemesis, or here's Superman, here's the guy that killed him. I kind of like where you're going with that. So that's cracking.
So I just realized too, just in case, I just realized this. I did these renders based on the digital sculpts, right? Like 2 hours ago, whatever. What Alex loved on my last thing, like, and here's this, and here's this. But I totally forgot. So Chad's gonna do an actual, like, I forget, like a glass dome for free. So we don't have a digital sculpt of it. So I just looked at them like, he has no dome. So Freeze will get a dome on his head in case like, where's his dome?
And it is glass.
Dave decided to cock tease us right before and basically send me a message on Messenger just going, yeah, here's the new shit. And nothing came for quite a while. I was waiting patiently. It was 2 minutes before the live chat. Still nothing.
Dramatic pause.
Yeah. He's like, where is it? I totally forgot because it uploaded. I just forgot to copy paste the link over. So I closed the link window. So I had to re-upload it real quick for you. So that was fun. Real fun. It
wasn't even that dot when someone's typing or anything. It was nothing. It was just new shit and nothing. Next up, you also have then some of the other DC stuff. So the teasers.
The statues.
The statues. Let me make sure I'm on the right screen. There you go.
So we have announced Catwoman. We've teased her before. This is kind of like this is one where, one thing I love about working with Chad is if we're not happy with something, we'll keep reworking until we're like, all right, this is it. Instead of like rushing something to get up on the website, which not saying everything should be rushed either. Obviously, we're a business. We have to eventually put something out. You can't just drop infinite money into these things. But Catwoman was one where we got to a point. Chad was looking at it, felt like deterred a little bit from this thing. We were trying to, at one point, we were toying with Batman going another direction, so we held off on her. And then when Batman got finished, then Chad needed a minute and came back at Catwoman with fresh eyes. And so this is one where we're like kind of in the middle of like her third version in a sense. And we're really happy with how it's coming out. We have Thiago Zenobini started the sculpt, and Guillermo Barbario is helping us finish it with some revision so it works better with like this Batman. So
unfortunately, I didn't add the Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman, but that was phenomenal. The Michelle Pfeiffer one you did, that was so nice.
That's 10,000% Chad. I think I helped him connect with sculptors and sources and stuff because I think that was like when I was coming on.
Yeah, that Tweeterhead Catwoman is the nuts. It's very nice.
Yeah,
because Chad, it was Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman went through like all sorts of crazy stuff. And
that was, and even Elvira. I mean, Elvira has been like a work in progress for I think 3 years. It's worth it. It's worth it to just like get it to where it's perfect. Elvira, started out as a traditional wax sculpt, and it was going to be 6 scale, and so we scanned it in, and then we started working on it and perfected it. But yeah, this is kind of the beauty a little bit of having kind of a smaller business is like, we can do stuff like this. We're like, hey, we want to wait until she's perfect, ready to go. And, hopefully the excitement is still there,
And then the next DC piece you have here.
Brand new announcement. I don't think we ever announced. There's your big pop guy, Gio. You happy?
I need it. Yeah, I need it. I think it looks great, man. So I'm just checking out that silhouette. Yeah.
So this was one that goes back a ways too. So back when Chad released his first Darkseid, at one point it was going through the same thing where maybe we want to push things out. Like, is this the Tweeterhead 2.0? Do we keep it with superpowers? So we kept it with superpowers, and we pushed this one way out. We actually got pretty far in this sculpt with Amilcar Fong, and then we paused it. And it's been basically sitting in the same state for like 2 or 3 years because we don't want to be like, oh, Darkseid, then another Darkseid. So we just really want to give the first one the space and come back to this one. And I know Chad's looking at it. We're still not sure if the head's going to be perfectly straight on or slight turn body or whatever. I like the straight on feel, but I get like certain collectors might feel, oh, it's all symmetrical, straight on arms behind his back.
I would like it tilted to his right and down.
Oh yeah.
You see what? So like right. So like so it has it up. I would sort of like be like there.
Yeah.
Just down that way because he's always looking down at everybody. It's got
he's
that
looking down now. Where do you think we are as the viewer? We're like on the ground looking up at it. He's looking down at us, man.
Yeah, that's it. You want it sort of like down. And I think, you know, I agree with you. I think the straightness is, you know, he's nice and straight. So I think there's a slight more ominous sort of with the turn, but that's just me. That's just my personal.
Somebody just said straight on.
Yeah.
Yeah, they will.
It was David. He just chimed in.
I feel like I log into my other account and like straight on. I feel like this is kind of the debate you get in with like making a Flash statue. Do you do a museum or do you do him running? I feel like with Darkseid, I just feel like he's such a monumental, like living god.
Yeah,
straight on makes him feel like that. And I think maybe this would be a good one too, where maybe you could get a swap out head where like the other head is turned a little bit, so you get like two different display angles, kind of like with the Skeletor maquette. You get, you know,
exactly
one that's more like this and one that's looking up. So maybe one we, you know, because Chad and I have talked about doing two portraits of this, so maybe it is like straight on and one that's slightly more turned. But yeah, this is this one, you know, Chad and I were holding on to for a while, and you know, I talked to Chad about like, hey, do you want to? Because we're aiming to have this guy hopefully sooner rather than later. And we thought it'd be a good opportunity to share it with you guys. Want to show some like, you know,
love the post, man. Love the post.
Awesome,
fantastic post.
Arms behind his back. It's a little bit tricky. It's a little bit risky because I know everyone. I think risky things to people are like crossing arms, covering the chest, or arms behind the back and not seeing the arms at all. Like it's like you have these weird things what people perceive as helping a statue or hurting a statue.
Yeah.
But with Darkseid, I think he screams like one of the only characters that get away with like both arms behind his back because it's just like so classic Darkseid, you know?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it's so stoic too, in a way. And it's just like, it just, you know, again, kind of going back to that Poison Ivy discussion. I mean, the guy doesn't have to do much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
and I'm actually really proud of the base. This is something I worked on with this designer, JP Mavinga, who I worked with for a long time at Sideshow. And we really want to get a balance of Apocalypse, but get a cool thing. And he has like the floating hover thing. And then we have some of the lava and fire coming off of it. So you can see there's like Jack Kirby inspired sculpt texture for like what Apocalypse looks like around the rings. And we have like the rings of fire and stuff coming out. So it's going to be, when this thing's painted up, it's going to be, I think it's going to be freaking awesome. I'm really excited about this coming out. Not to, but to, you know,
have to do it, man. You have to do it.
A little bit, yeah. So we're still finishing it. It's not done. There's no texture. We're still playing around with like different texture treatments for the arms and the face. So, but yeah,
that's a fantastic share, man. I can't wait to see that painted up.
We get finished up.
A lot of people that,
you know, we've been a little bit slower with some of the DC 1/6 scale stuff. And again, like I think last year we put out just Two-Face and Batman. Then the year before that we had like 8 or 6 or 8. You know, it was just crazy. Went from like 6 or 8 to 2. To like, I think we're doing 3 this year, but you know, Chad, I really want to emphasize that, you know, the people that are like, is a 6 scale line dead? It's not. We have plans. Just sometimes we want to take the extra time to get these characters just right. So just take some.
DC is a saturated market, isn't it? So a lot of people are doing it. So waiting for your sort of moment is difficult. It's a challenge because, you know, everybody's trying to sort of jump in here and there. You know what I mean? We see it very, very regularly where someone will put up like a reveal like this, and then all of a sudden there's like 6 others come, like the company's just gone quick, show them ours that we're doing one, just to make sure that they don't like jump into this before they know we're going to do one. So you know, that's the problem, isn't it? I guess
it can be. It's like, and it's a weird thing too. I think we talked about this before when Chad and I were on another chat, but like the advantage. I know, we cheated on you guys. But it was like the advantage of being first to market, then also the advantage of not being first to market. And I believe there's advantages to both. First to market, you're the first one. But when you let someone else, this is the analogy I use. If you let someone else walk out on the minefield first, you can see if they blow up or not. You know, just like, all right, cool, I won't walk that direction. So sometimes being second or third, you can be like, all right, I see everything that other company did, how I wouldn't want to do it. Or how or collectors are responding to it. So it can be great to be first because you're the first, but sometimes if you just wait a second, you can gauge the interest and all of these things and look at yours with a fresh eye and make adjustments. So
far more strategic approach, David, for sure.
I can be strategic sometimes. A lot of times I'm just like, the kid. Yeah. Anyways, I'll make an inappropriate analogy. But yeah, sometimes I'm chaos, just a little chaos. It's good.
Someone was asking if the Catwoman will be 1/4 or and 1/6 as well.
I don't think she'll be 1/4. I think she'll be 1/6.
Okay. And then we're moving now into the Masters of the Universe stuff. So,
Stuff Geo hates.
I just
Yeah.
love all this stuff. I wish I had, like, I need to move into a bigger house. Keep fucking saying it.
So do you want to go into about how you kind of started with that line, or?
Yeah, I think it goes back to
this was something you were involved in before, and we
Yeah,
did
just,
that before. We did that off the chat, didn't we? That was a conversation, I think.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
talked about that a little bit at the beginning, but basically, it was just, a happy continuation of what Sideshow had started. They blessed it. We did Orco with them, and then we got our license and just started moving on. And, when David talks about my Superman bust that he wasn't in favor of, this was one that I was like, oh, no one's going to buy a life-size Skeletor bust. And totally eating my words because it was hugely popular.
Yeah,
But
I think we
also,
sold.
it's fucking awesome.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, it was another one I worked on with Amilcar Fong, and just like we had a loose idea for what we want to do. We wanted it to be like kind of like take the original we did Sideshow. Amilcar didn't work out, but I mean, like, part of this line, look at it, and then just take like the complexity of what was there. And then there are things, as an artist, you always look back on what you did before. You're like, you're always looking at things.
Yeah.
You go back. So this is a great opportunity for me to go like, all right, what are the things I would do differently? What are the things I would like, keep? And then what are the things that like need to be evolved because now it's a life-size bust. It's no longer just a fifth scale statue. So Amilcar and I originally assumed this would be like a 6-week sculpt because, hey, it's just a bust. It's like no legs, no arms, no anything. It's just like this simple base, and we have this other thing to work from. End up being like a 3.5-month project because of how much work went into all the armoring, make sure it layered right, make sure it wasn't too heavy, because at one point it was a little bit too bulky and it looked like battle armor Skeletor, so we had to like push it all in. Dude, I co-sculpted a lot of this with him, where like he would be working on things. I'm like, all right, give me that like one of those armor pieces, give me that. And I would like try and find the visual language of the detail. We didn't want to be random, and the side one, which I love, we had a great time working on it. A lot of that was rushed because I remember we were rushing it to Comic-Con, and the sculptor really just kind of like added a bunch of detail, which is great. But then when you really look at it, you're like, oh, this area doesn't really make sense. Doesn't make sense. So we wanted to like have a flow in the individual armor pieces, and then also when the whole thing was put together. So that took a lot more time than either of us realized. It was kind of crazy. So, and then
it's funny because I look at this and it's a similar, if not the same armor scheme as this Skeletor that I've just received. Isn't it?
Oh, it is very much. Yeah. So all the hard work we put into this, we want to amortize for the fifth scale.
I'm like, fuck, I've seen that before.
Yeah. We literally took the bust, posed it, which changed a lot of stuff on it. But then we had to go back in and change some of the details, because when we take a life-size bust, you shrink it down, details get really soft. So a lot of people, a misunderstanding about digital is you sculpt something once, you have this asset, you can do it in any size. I learned this through someone else's hard work, which is great. But I remember when I was at Gentle Giant Studios, the famous Will Harbottle, that's where we originally met. We were both at Gentle Giant Studios together. He was amazing. He was known back then for being a toy sculptor, traditional wax. He had like a crazy kit. He had 1 million action figures in his cubicle at Gentle Giant, all these things. And he was like the action figure guy. And he hated statues, like statues are dumb. He's now like, statue guy. But he was a self-taught digital sculptor. And I was helping him with some stuff at the time, like little tricks or tips, or like, oh, hey, think of it this way. But I wouldn't say I taught him digital. He was very self-taught. And he was working on a 3 3/4 inch figure for Captain America. And it was going to be the scale mail. And he did this. You look out on your screen, he was like getting all this cool, intricate scale mail detail. And when he 3D printed it that big, it looked like noise. It looked like just like sand pebbles, looked like nothing. So he had to go back to the digital file, and each of these scales that were like originally like this big on me, he had to blow them up to look like big saucers, like super exaggerated, because that's the only way it would read in a smaller scale. So when you go big in detail and then you go small, it just doesn't hold up. You have to like go exaggerate things, punch things up. If you take something small and blow it up, it looks super cartoony, caricature, because you have to exaggerate a lot of things to make it work. So when we did our first test print of this thing, some of the detail got lost. We had to go back in and resculpt some of it to make sure it popped for the 5th scale statue. So it wasn't just like you take it in, it's lazy. It's like, well, we worked our ass off to find like a new version 2 of Skeletor. So we want to make it so the bust and the statue go together. So it's pretty much
it does look functional, doesn't it?
That's what we wanted that too. You know, we really wanted it to look like if he moved, you know, like the layers like scallop, like would collapse on each other. So you could actually like not do this, but you know, he could, you know, raise his arms a bit.
Certainly could, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. So and then the thing Amilcar and I spent a lot of time on was the dragon in the back, which is like not many people could appreciate because it's on the back, but that dragon, we spent so much time like, is it a straight on head? Is it turned to the side? Is it whatever? And we have a bunch of, you know, I've been writing fan fiction for what I would do for a He-Man movie based on Legends, because He-Man has the original mini comic stories very different than the original cartoon. Then you have the live action movie, the He-Man New Adventures, and you have the 2000X. Then all of them are like different, right? So I've been writing like, what would I do with a movie if I could? I'm pretty proud of, but I was like, all right, it feels like all these factions, like the heroic warriors have like, you know, whether you think it's a falcon or an eagle, like I think it's a falcon for like goddess and whatever, like, or sorceress, like that's like the heroic warriors have this bird, and the horde have the bat. I'm like, who do the evil warriors have? You know, in Skeletor's Lord of Destruction, and through super nerdy MOTU lore, you find out dragons are like destructors of this planet. So I'm like, oh, what if he had what if the dragon is him? And he like Game of Thrones, everyone loves dragons. And then you also have Dragon Blaster Skeletor. So I'm like, oh, that all works together. All right, we're doing dragons. And then the thing on
love that one, that dragon. That's with the little one on his shoulder, right?
Yeah. Dragon Blaster. So then we were like, well, let's make it so like the thing on his chest, we can just say isn't a bat anymore. It's now supposed to be a motif of a dragon wings. You have the dragon head on the back. So that's all the super nerdy shit.
I fucking love it.
Then
I love you geeking out, David, as well. You geeking out makes me geek out, bro. It's awesome.
We could have a whole nother talk later if you want to. I can tell you my whole movie story. I'm kidding. Just like what I would do with Faker. I have ideas, bro. It's fun.
I believe it, man. Basically, you know, it comes through. It comes through like having these pieces in person. Like there's a lot of thought, and it's certainly into the mechanics of how certain things would work and how they would function, which I like, because obviously that doesn't exist really anywhere.
Yeah,
we just know it works. We don't know how it works, but we know it works.
I think it's,
you know, like it's the same with this trap jaw, like the buckles and things that hold his arm on is very similar to how like somebody who lost their arm or had an accident and had to their arms, you know, they have those type of things, them straps, them buckles to keep it in place. It's very clever.
They've got an army of darkness. It's like an army of darkness. He has that as well,
dude. So not that I had this ready for the meeting. I actually had like all my toys around me, but it's just like this is like it was always just like this black thing on him. You know, it's like, well, how does it stay on? And you know, let's talk with Geo Nakpil, the guy so the Kucherk brothers actually helped with some original, really loose sketch idea stuff and neutral pose for the costume. And they tried out some pose stuff for me too, back when they were freelance. And so we took those ideas, and they're super rough and they're great. And then working with Geo, it's like, how do we make this all make sense? And, you know, I always thought like, the idea, and I forgot if it was Brian or if it was Geo or me, I forgot who had it, but just the idea of like having these ratchet straps, you know, kind of like, how would a one-arm guy put this on? Like, you can't do it with like a buckle, because it's
exactly.
So it's like a ratchet strap. So that might have been, again, I forgot who had the idea originally, but it got in there and I'm happy. I don't care whose idea it is. The best idea should always rise to the top. And yeah, it was that. And then also with the mechanical arm stuff, they did some really cool rough stuff. And I remember specifically, I was like, how am I going to approach technology in this world? Because I have the 2000X Trap Jaw statue right here. And it's my favorite Trap Jaw, not now this is my favorite trap jaw, but up to then,
as rightly so, it should be, yeah.
Yeah, and they have all this cool like sci-fi tech and hoses and tubes, and it's awesome. I'm like, all right, cool. That to me is a very staple of like their stuff. So I want to like not do hoses at all. No like cords or anything. So how can I make this thing look like a thing? And does he have attachments? Like, does he have the gun separate, the saw separate, or like the pincher set? Like, does he have all this stuff separate? I'm like, what if it's like if orcs from Lord of the Rings kept evolving and had like steampunk? That's what I want it to look like. Was like hammered metal, blacksmith made it. You can like like all the like you can see the chain linking, like one guy actually came up to me at one of the conventions and so when he saw, he's like, I feel like I can hear that arm moving. And I was like, oh, that's awesome, you know? And then I went away from all the extra, like the gun on his back or whatever. I'm like, instead of that, what if it's like a Swiss Army knife of death where just like, oh, it's a gun, but then it's got the blade that could fold up, or like this thing, like it's got some semi-transforming elements with it being clear. And then on his belt, because in the original toy, he has the attachments, like the laser gun is separate from everything. I'm like, what if he has tools? Like he has a cutter. Like to me, it's like, oh, like a cutter, and then he has a laser. Like it could be a laser, could be a screwdriver, could be it's like multi, use.
Yeah,
tool
yeah.
Yeah, George said it was a lightsaber. He said it looks like a lightsaber.
Yeah, I said it like it could be. I didn't say it was one, but I mean, I got the thing that it was some type of sort of weapon. But the idea that it could be like a tool, maybe even to fix or do something, take his arms. That's genius. I love that. I think that's fantastic.
Thanks, man. Then we, Chad. One thing I always think of too is like, I definitely like pushing what I think is cool, but then I always try to like pull it back to, you learn from things in the past, and I want to be like, all right, like we got to do the modern head. I love it. We got to do the classic head. Cool. And then some people are like, oh, it'd be cool if you had a classic arm. I remember at one of the conventions before we committed to this, I'm like, Chad, can we please squeeze in a classic arm? He's like, I would love that. So that was like a total last second thing. And I, some people, that's their preferred version. I love that. So it's cool to like have, you have the 4 swap outs. You could have 4 different looks, but I don't think the modern head works with the classic arm. So I say you have 3 different looks in the thing, so.
He's just got a lot going on for that piece. I think they all work together. I got the Merman as well. It's very hard for me to separate. I mean, you asked me on the post earlier, like where would I place them? It's very difficult. It's really, really difficult. I mean, I originally placed Trapjaw ahead of Merman. As time has gone on, I'm not sure. It's really hard now. But Merman hasn't got that initial like sort of like fuck, like wow. I mean, but when you start going into it, you start looking at all the, the detailing on it, you're just a bit like, fuck. And he's got some of the best eyes I've ever seen. Like what you did with the eyes is spectacular. The eyes on this Merman.
I would say
when I got out of the box, I pulled that head out. I was like, fuck me. This is really nice. These eyes, how they did these eyes.
But the painter, Liz Maggie, who's someone I used to work with at Gentle Giant, did great. But then also making a prototype is one thing, but then having the factory crush it. And the factory just like took that paint and was able to like pull that into a scan, into a decal, like a water soluble decal, and then just perfectly replicate it. So that's like one of those rare instances where, production matches or exceeds the prototype, which is, always what you hope for, Yeah. But Milkar Fong was another, like we co-designed this and he was the primary sculptor on it. And he did all of it, I think. I forgot if someone else helped out, but this is one where when I was talking to him, just like trapped out, like how do I make this work in this world? And I didn't want it to look like he took a seashell and made a shoulder pad, or he took this and, it's like, what's an underwater blacksmith do? Like, I know it's contradictory because like having a fire pit underwater is impossible. Like, it is a magic world. There's got to be like a blacksmith of Atlantis or something. So like, how would they make their weapons and stuff? So it's got to have the feeling of underwater stuff, but can't look like, oh, he just took this thing and put it on him. That was very important. So even like this thing, like the crest here, it was based on a rough sculpt I did. So when I was at Sideshow and we weren't making the statues anymore before Chad got the license, I did a couple fan art mini busts, just like, what would I do with Merman and Trapjaw and Beastman? And I always thought like I loved the original crest, the spike sticking up. I made it like a shark jaw kind of coming around, had this like flow to it. So Milkar took that and ran with it, brought his own little thing to it too. And there's some things I like about my bust a little bit more than the statue. And then there's things I like more that he did in the statue than I did in the bust. And we actually released the bust with PowerCon through Val. So there's actually some people that have a little production copy of like my original mini bust that helped like, you know, Chad and I kind of like keep this line going. So that was really like an honor to be able to like release something I said I sculpted and designed myself, because I've never really done that. So, but the sword and the thing on his back is supposed to be like where the sword could actually clasp too. We're going to make it so like the little teeth would wrap, like they'd open up and close. And we're going to do a swap out where the sword was on his back, but we're just like, all right, well then that's like 18, you know, Chad and I just don't want to be like the 18 swap outs people. So we have the two heads, the sword or the trident. And we like, hey, that's a great combination.
I think that's somewhere that's an area where I think you need to be commended, because you can have, you know, 12 switch outs or whatever you else. But I mean, I think the real skill is when you have one or two changes that really do change the dynamic look of the piece and even the feel, the personality of it, which I think is massive. Like with Hordak, for example, the change from just even the pointing finger and the skull head versus the sort of mechanical and cannon is ridiculous. Like it's a completely different feeling. It's a completely different sort of arc on it, and it's really good that you can make that change without it being too severe. You understand? Well, you're not changing a whole waist and taking off the whole top of it and then changing this and changing that like a transformer. It's really good. And I mean, it's the same with Skeletor, the new one that you've done. It's the same sort of thing. The sword in the hand and the laughing portrait really changes, you know, to the more focused sort of, you know, I'm using the other one at the moment, the more modern sort of look, and the other hand that doesn't have the sword. Don't know why, I just kind of like the balance of that look at this time. But it's the sword switch out with the laughing head's fucking genius. It's really, really clever. So well done on that.
Something like Chad and I wanted to do, going like from earlier Tweeterhead into this, is like find the swap outs that make sense. Like not just shove stuff in just to shove stuff in, because I don't want, you know, at a certain point you got to just own your own thing. You can't be like, well, I'm going to give you 80 million swap outs. I cover every single thing. It's like, well, I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of like, you can do that. And some people love that and want that. And I'm not like, you can do that. Just for me, it's like, it just, you got to own a vision in a sense a little bit, you know, like, I don't know, just like, that's my own thing. I also like, I'm a less is more guy. I don't like detail on top of detail on top of this, on top of this, with this and this. It's like, dude, sometimes you just less can be more. And obviously we do pieces like the Joker, which are the opposite of that. I think there can be exceptions to the rule, but yeah, just try to find the meaningful ones. Cause I'm a stickler for like anatomy and stuff. And some people want like, oh, you could swap the arms, get this different pose. But I'm like, dude, but chest, like arm is back, your chest is doing something different than when they're forward. You know, like I just like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to, like, you know, when you change your like wrist orientation, your whole forearm changes. So to me, it's like, it's gotta be a real settled change. Otherwise it's going to just drive me.
Yeah, but that's very important, because I also, you know, obviously with my job and what I do, it's something I will spot straight away. So it's right. And you're right to bring up this sort of like, you know, like the radial brachialis type of thing. Even the slightest change in the wrist completely changes all the way down the arm, and even to the point of the focus of the bicep. Yeah. So if you turn that, your bicep position goes from either your long head engages or your short head engages. So therefore, some people will change the hand position, but the bicep is still engaging the long head of the bicep, which you just look at it and you're like, oh, that's fucked. That's not right.
Yeah.
And you just,
I think it's a balance too. It's a balance, because you want to be able to do stuff. We're making fantasy stuff that doesn't exist. So I think there's not because I work with an amazing artist who's like a super stickler for realistic anatomy. And I have to call him. I'm like, dude, you're worrying way too much about like this thing that only you, me, and Geo will notice. You know, so it's like, it's that fine line of like, we're making statues of fantasy barbarians in space.
We're making like fishmen, bro. It's fine.
Yeah. Making a fish man, making a gorilla man.
He doesn't even have 2 bicep heads. What are you talking about? He's got 6, like everybody else that lives under the sea.
I thought for a second there, I thought you were talking about something else, and you're talking about long head and short head. I was like, hey, you know.
Oh my God. Hey guys, I am so sorry, but I have got to take off. So this was a blast. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming on, Chad. Appreciate it, bro.
Yeah, and let's do it again, all right?
Oh, yeah, definitely, man.
Awesome. Thanks, Chad.
Awesome. Bye, you guys.
Have a great day.
You guys still have me, though. We'll be honest. I am definitely the most important person at Tweeterhead.
Oh, no question.
Chad answers to me. No, I do what I want all the time. People say that.
I wish someone would fucking answer to me.
Once in a while, that's like, oh, Tweeterhead got Dave Igo. He's gonna start taking off the red trunks on Superman. I'm like, oh, dude, you know, take off the trunks one time. By the way, I will say, now that we're talking about taking trunks off, I think I'm one of the only people that has actually properly cosplayed Captain America, where I had on underwear, then I had on blue leggings. I put on red underwear on top of it. And no one should ever have to do that in their life. It's horrible. So I just don't know how superheroes do it. So if I'm tasked with Chad with making a classic Superman, I'm going to make a classic Superman. If he wants me to bring it, my modern sensibilities, I'll be like, dude, red trunks are stupid to me. You know, just in terms of pants on top of pants. Come on, Gio. You wouldn't do that. Alex,
I don't even wear pants. So it's fine. I would just let it all hang out, especially if I was Superman. I imagine he's got something going on down there. So I don't think he would even worry about it. He'd be like, listen, I'm Superman for a reason, bitch. But yeah.
Yeah, looking at this Skeletor, it was real fun trying to like take the one-to-one bust design aesthetic of the armor and then bring it down to like the wrist guards, the belt, the shin guards, looking back at the original sideshow and just looking at like what was done and making this feel like it's the 2.0 version of it, you know? So it was real treat to see this come to life. So
I can't wait to see it when I go to CGO next. It looks fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a massive step up. I feel, and not that you were stepped down with the other things. I think you were, you know, the Masters line is very, very strong, but I feel like there was a new ceiling that was sort of reached with this piece. I didn't really anticipate it, to be honest. I have to be honest. I didn't. This was a little bit on a whim, this one. I picked this up, and it was a bit like, you know, it wasn't in my initial plans. I was like, I'm happy with the OG. But when I got it in, I was like, fuck. So,
well,
good moments. They're great moments.
I like how you say, I'm going to be honest, because I always hate how much you lie and how much you're not honest. I'm glad you just clarify that, because I'm like, oh, finally, an honest moment with Gio.
Dude, you fucking, you know what I mean? What can I do, man? What can I do?
This Beastman was a blast. This is another one worked on with Gio Nakpil, like who did Trap Jaw. And then Ariel Mora Ramis did the base for this to match, like to keep the consistency through Skeletor and Trap Jaw in this one. So we wanted all the bases to match, like they're all in the same Snake Mountain. But this is a fun one because this was a little bit more like clacky, like, oh, here's this, you know, I want to keep it very classic Beastman, like the shoulder spikes and stuff, instead of it being like the symmetrical armor. I'm like, what if it was like a giant, like fantasy creature with like a horn, and that's like the spike? So that was kind of fun work with Gio, and he helped design what that creature skull looks like. Because he's for those, if you guys aren't familiar with his work, Gio actually worked on the original Avengers Hulk, like the, you know, Mark Ruffalo. He was one of the primary design sculptors on that for ILM. So he knows anatomy, he knows creature, he knows human anatomy, creature anatomy. He knows hard surface stuff. So working on Trap Jaw with him was a blast. Working on Beastman was crazy because, like, all right, this guy's covered in fur, but how do we like break that up, and how do we bring like a level of, you know, sophistication to like all the armor bits without making it feel too clacky? And again, like, is this part of a creature, or is this like made? Is this carved? I didn't want anything on him to look machined at all. Everything had to be organic, like tribal, you know. That was very much, you know, what Gio and I are trying to, we come up with like rules for each piece. Like, why does this guy have this? Why does this guy have this? And then on that image you're on now, Alex, we try to give each one a cool belt buckle, you know, like Skeletor. Hordak has Horde Prime, which is like his master, yeah. And Skeletor has Hordak, who is his master, depending on the lore. So then, instead of putting like a skull on his, we actually took the ram skull from Skeletor's staff. Havoc. We always think of that as like, oh, this is
stuff, yeah.
Yeah. So this is like, you know,
Skeletor's dog. Yeah, it's their god, isn't it? So it's that's the what powers Skeletor, right? So that's his god. So on the Hordak, it's what Horde Prime.
Yeah, Horde Prime.
Awesome.
So then, like that, we thought that was like a very, and then Trap Jaws is a skull. Like it was always a skull. We're like, let's just make the skull look cool. We gave it like these long pincers, so it just didn't feel like a normal skull. And we didn't. I was trying to come up with like a reason for it, and I think I had like 3 random ideas, and we never really committed to one. I'm like, we just need to get this done. I'm thinking way too hard about this. But with Beastman, Nate Bartsch, who's an amazing artist, and he's known for doing a lot of He-Man art. When we were talking about the belt buckle, we had like a generic creature skull there, and he's like, "Oh, we should do just the Ram skull from the Havoc stats. Make that like that's Skeletor's main, because Beastman's supposed to be Skeletor's original ally. Him and Evil Lyn, I think, are the original too. So it's like his dog. So yeah,
I'm very excited to get this in that Beastman. I'm loving the whip, and I'm loving the finer details. I think it's difficult as well because there's so much detailing on there at the moment, and the colors are very almost in camouflaged in a way. He's going to be one of them ones going to be like almost Easter eggs with that, where you're going to like sort of get it in, and you're going to be like, oh shit, this is like an animal's fucking head, or this is like you know what I mean. I think there's going to be a lot of that going on. I think people going to, when they get it in hand, they're going to be blown away by some of those details, and I'm really excited to see where you go with your next He-Man. You like your figure wise in terms of your statue.
Yeah, we got. I sent Alex some stuff, which when we get to it, if you give me a heads up, Alex, and we'll talk about it. And so, I mean, most of it we've shown or teased in one form or another. It's been updated slightly because at PowerCon we showed a few future statues. Since then, each piece has kind of like evolved and updated. So I've kind of like updated what that is without going too far into the future. Because again, I don't want to be a guy that's like, we're showing you stuff in like the next 3 years, or I'd be like, all right, here's this year max, kind of a thing. And
again, this isn't a one date. Now we've got you on here, bro. We'll catch up. It's no problem.
Right. I'm excited. But yeah, the He-Man bust was a bigger challenge than Skeletor, because I think like cool skull villain guy is one thing. Giant buff naked blonde guy is like another battle. And then also like everyone has in their head like classic He-Man, this He-Man, whatever, but we want this to be true to Legends aesthetic. And also someone very high up at Mattel wanted us to make him young and handsome. So that was like the thing that, because I would have pushed like, not made him like crazy Conan Neanderthal or anything like that, but I probably would push like a little bit more something in his face. But they're like young and handsome, young and handsome, young and handsome. I'm like, okay. But we pushed the strong jaw. And Geo Nakpil was one of the primary sculptors on this. I had Ariel Mora Ramus come in and help out with some stuff too. And then Tiago Zenabini helped out. And we just feel like all of our like pulled together a super team, just make sure we got like as good as we can a He-Man that if they were to announce a live action movie or show tomorrow and you saw that, I think most people would be pretty stoked. Like, oh, that's the He-Man I'm getting. Cool. But we don't have that, and you're kind of like making up your own. It's kind of hard, and it didn't sell as well as we wanted to. We announced it like edition size originally at 500. Didn't sell anywhere near that, so we adjusted the edition size to only 150. So there's going to be only 150 of those life-size He-Man busts. And
Jesus.
So I think it's gonna be a great reward for those that invest in it and support us early on. And I still think it's a great looking He-Man. I think like when we do the full statue, I think people are gonna, more people like statues than busts. I think that we'll see.
You've got it spot on there, David. With that, it's just everybody is attached to their own look.
Yeah.
Like with Skeletor, I really think you can get away with a little bit more leverage with like what you can play with. I think with He-Man, you're gonna be like, there's gonna be like a massive percentage of the industry that that love this shit. That's gonna go, nope, that's not my He-Man. Don't like that.
And I get it, and I don't blame him. I'm not saying you should love this. You should spend $1,000 and have this much space in your house and do it. It's like, dude, if you love it, awesome. Thank you so much. And if you don't, then I get it. Everyone has. I would be as picky too as a collector. I'm not. I never judge a collector for being picky. Sometimes they're missing the context. I try to provide context. I try. Sometimes I fail not to be defensive, but I always try to provide context for the whys. So
definitely. I love the Filmation Hordak as well. That's a really beautiful looking piece.
Thanks, man. That was great. That was our first PowerCon exclusive / variant, So it was real fun to do. And the colors just pop. And that's one thing I love about like all the colors of the He-Man universe are so crazy that some people bought both Hordaks and some people like have one Hordak with certain characters because like, oh, I don't have a blue pop in my collection here, so I'm gonna put Hordak here in the here, you know. So this imp, I think, was actually the fastest. We should do this to up on the website of anything I've ever made in my life. So Amilcar Fong was another, like the designer sculptor on this with me, and Nate Barch helped with the base. But I think from idea to sculpt to printed to painted on the website was like with approvals all in there. I think it was like 2 months. It was like insane. Wow. It was like 3 months max. It was like, but again, it's like a little bat dragon guy. I thought Mattel would have way more feedback on the bat dragon thing, but they loved it. Oh, there's that merman bust cells. So that's my design sculpt that springboarded the statue line and stuff like that. So
it's beautiful to see how things start, isn't it?
Yeah, so you can tell. I
saw Martin Spice get one. He's a big.
He's a massive fan, and Martin's nice guy.
Oh, that's cool. I'm not sure if I know Mart. I mean, we might. I'm brain farting hard.
Martin Spice collects all your stuff.
Yeah, he collects all your stuff. He's very active on RaddTitan.
Oh, awesome! Thank you, Martin Spice, for the support. If there's anything you ever missed, don't hesitate to reach out. Sometimes there's an extra copy of something sitting around, and that's not an offer for anyone. Just people that you guys said are super collectors. I love our stuff. I try and help people out. If we have something, if I hoarded something, I have it, and I'm like, dude, this sitting in a box.
I wish I had got one of them minions, them Hordak minions. Probably the blue or the red one. I think they look fucking awesome. I slept on that. I was stupid.
Thanks, man. Those are actually ones I only have literally one of each, and they're both mine. So sorry.
Yeah, they're awesome though. I think they look great. I think they really cut. They're real good companion. Sort of. I don't know. What's the right word?
Little buddy.
Proximity piece. Piece. I mean, that's fine. I actually like the blue with the other Hordaks. I would, the blue with the one I have would be better with the grey. I don't know why.
It's not accurate, but I approve of you doing what makes you happy, Gio. You know.
The next one's a lineup.
Oh, cool. So this is like what I was telling you guys about, like the future of Tweeterhead's MOTU line this year. Oh, sorry. This is this shows like the breadth of like what's been done when, you know, at Sideshow. And I tried to line it up so it looks cool. It's a Photoshop. It's not like I wish I could photograph all these in one thing. But yeah, it kind of shows like, you know, the stuff we worked on at Sideshow, which was, you know, He-Man. Now I have the Tweeterhead Skeletor in there. We have the Sideshow She-Ra. We have the Sideshow Evelyn variant. And we did, you know, there's 2 different Evelyn's. And again, the Sideshow
Skeletor. That She-Ra sells for big money now, David. You know that?
Oh, it does? That's cool.
Oh, yeah. It's at least a G, bro. It's £1,000 that cost.
Dang. Well, I may or may not have an extra one. If there's any hardcore collectors, not that I'm selling for a G, I'll hook a guy up. I'm not, you know, like, I'm just saying. Sometimes there's the guy, the person that jumped in late. Like I remember at PowerCon, it was like the second PowerCon. You know, Chad and I talk about conventions and whatever, and I get it. They're not cheap. They cost money. You know, it's not like, oh, just do this thing. It's easy. But remember at the second the first one in Ohio, I think we were setting up. And this guy comes through one day and he's like, what? Like you could see his like head exploding. He's like, he loves He-Man, never knew he existed. It was like on a Friday. He's like, oh, what? He talked to me. He's like, wait, where have you been? What is it? I'm like, oh, hey, I'm Dave. I'm the creator. He's like, oh, what? He went home that night, came back the next day. He's like, bro, I just went back to my hotel. I bought one of everything. I had to have it, but I missed this. But I got these things. He showed me all of his orders. And when we got home, I helped him get the piece he didn't have. But that guy legit, it was awesome. I love it. Like, I'm not saying like everyone should know Tweeterhead. We're the biggest company in the world. Chad and I are very aware of how small we are, but we just try to do like, you know, it's quality, not
you won't be I mean, if you know, in terms of your quality last year, you were up with the big boys, and definitely I think if there'd have been more volume, I think if you'd have been able to produce like more volume of releases, I think you would have been in the argument for the Statue Company of the Year. It was the same with Pop Culture Shock as well. You guys are sort of creeping up on the Prime Ones and the XMs and the Sideshows of this world, in my opinion. I think you know, if you keep carrying on as you are, but you just up your like how much comes out and stay. It's hard because the balance is keeping the quality.
Yep.
And pushing the numbers. But if you can, I think you can compete. I really do. In terms of quality, it's got some serious shit.
Boiler. There we go.
Fuck, I love that fucking snow glow, scare glow. What are you doing to me, for fuck's sake?
So I was gonna say this is gonna be a boring year for you, knowing you like those. Like, we got scare glow, yeah. But you know, so this is we showed the scare glow art before, and then we showed Sorceress before. But there's an update to Sorceress where I was really battling what we do with her costume, and then also like the arms up with the wings, the arms down, the wings separate. And you know, actually, I forgot if Alex, you were messaging me because we were there's the reveal. Like Tweeterhead reshared the PowerCon slide, and it was in RaddTitan group, and everyone, like not everyone, but there were people jumping down like the Sorceress thing about like it's a cloak, it's not real wings. And someone's like, well, they're real wings in 2000. It became like a nerd talk, and then someone was critiquing the face and Man-At-Arms armor. I'm like, these are concepts. Like again, trying not to be defensive, but trying to be like, these aren't even any. Not saying, you know, some people will have something pretty far along and then everyone shits on. They go, oh, it's just a concept, you know, and then they backpedal and rework everything. But I think that, you know, it truly was like rough stuff. And actually one guy that was really up my ass about like the wings, you know, versus cloak thing, we actually had a really good exchange. Like, he's like, thank you for actually hearing me out. And we, you know, I was talking about it, like why we did what we did. And that conversation actually made me look at the pose again, because the original pose, she was like more leaned back, like she was landing. So I was trying to do more of like a not Jesus pose, but like just the arms more straight out and the wings more up. But then Mattel wanted us to have her not leaning back and have her more forward or like straight up or forward. So I made her more like straight up and down. And I feel like we lost something with the pose, and then I couldn't put my finger on it. And talking to this guy, I'm like, oh, maybe we just raise the arms up a bit more. We'll get the best of both worlds where it stays separate wings, but it gives the illusion visually and silhouette wise that still like the wings are attached to her arms.
Yes.
I don't always agree with all collector feedback, but every once in a while you have a really good discussion and they make a really good point and you can have a really awesome conversation. And it's like, is there a way to make this a win-win, you know, thing? And so I think we did it. And so it's like an 80% sculpt complete. The staff is still a placeholder. The smoke on the base, the Castle Grayskull smoke is a finished sculpt. The base turret bottom we're still pushing, tweaking a couple things, but it's pretty close to what she's going to look like. Just got to tighten and refine a few things. And then Man-At-Arms, who comes after Sorceress, we got the artwork this week updated. And, you know, the base, it's going to be, he poses really good with Tila. I forgot to give you this slide, Alex, but I have a slide of I do this with all of our MOTU stuff. When I have a pose composition, I bring in the other characters that they work with, not literally every single thing, but like I have Man-At-Arms with Tila and Sorceress, and just Tila and Man-At-Arms are like looking opposite directions, both very stoic. You know, I wanted the good guys to be more calm, stoic, you know, confident, and I wanted the bad guys more like evil, you know, looking like aggro. And I'm really excited what we're going to do with Man-At-Arms. I want him to be the cleaner, more refined version of Trapjaw. So we're going to take like a lot of the same armor aesthetic ideas, but make it more refined and clean. So it's almost like you could see like, oh, they might have gone to the same school for armoring, but like because Trapjaw like became a crazy bad guy and like was, you know, rushing or whatever, he like, this is what he had access to and what his look is. And, you know, Man-At-Arms having like the royal palace and money, like his is more refined. So,
or the duality of it. So one is corrupted by evil, and therefore that's represented in his armor and his how he looks. And the other one obviously has the grace of God and good, so he's shiny and brand new. Yeah, do you understand what I'm saying? So that, I like that idea, man. That's a cracking idea. Yeah. I'm very excited to see. I mean, if you get that sort of on sort of the metallics, sort of like, you know, like an Iron Man-ish sort of like. You know, like a mirror paint, you know, like a, you know what I'm saying, like a car paint sort of mirrored finish. I think I'm going to have to buy it. If you do that, I'm going to have to get it
I think
I think something that's
high gloss will be tricky. I think making it look like a nice metal without the high gloss. I think high gloss might be too much, but it's something we're going to play with for sure. I want to make sure we get the right thing, make sure we can produce it great, and that we're not going to get like some high scrap rate thing from the factory. Just make sure like this is what's best for him.
Yeah.
And I think it's gonna be great. And I know a lot of people have been asking for more heroes because we've definitely been more villain focused. Because I'm like villains are cool. I mean, I got my Spikor, where's my camera? I want my Spikor, I want my Stinkor. I got like all my He-Man villains down here. I don't got any.
What's the geezer with the two heads?
Too bad.
Is it Too Bad? Yeah, Too Bad with the blue guy and the purple guy. That was my favorite figure when I was a kid. Also, there was a guy who had a wheel on his chest. He was Hordak's guy. Fucking loved that guy.
Dragstore.
Yeah, that's that guy. You got like a thing and you yanked it and he went flying. His arms. Yeah. He was fucking really cool looking.
I think it's safe to say we probably won't make Dragstore anytime soon, but who knows? But Too Bad would be cool. Top of my list is like Clawful, Spikor, Whiplash, Spikor, Webstore. Any of the cool creature villain things are like those are like my boys. Ratlore, like I love Snake, so Ratlore is my Snake Man guy. I know a lot of people are Cobra Khan or King Hiss, but yeah, actually, so the Scareglow piece is a fun little history bit about that one. That was one that the Kucherik brothers were working on with me like when I first started working with Tweeterhead, it was going to be a bust. Chad wanted to do 5th scale statues and 5th scale busts. And then this is when Chad and I were learning how to work together a little bit more and like learning aesthetics and who likes what. And I was pushing for a look with it and Chad wasn't sure about it. So so the Kucherik brothers and I got to a point, hit pause, and now we're giving it legs. We're going to refine a little bit of everything. And I think we're going to get the best of both worlds. But yeah, it's Kucherik Brothers co-design, co-sculpt, and we're going to bring in someone else new to help finish it off just because they're busy with this other company. I forget the company's name, PCS. So no, Brian and Dennis are awesome. I mean, I was like, we got to work with these guys when I was at Sideshow. And so I started working with them there. And they just, most artists I work with, I end up becoming friends with because, they're like, I like to think I get along with a lot of different people. And most artists are really cool people. So it's like, they became buds. So I love them, love how nerdy they are. And they love this world. So they played in it a little bit with me, which was great.
Yeah, and they're hot as shit, man. They're like some of my favorite sculptors for sure.
Yeah.
So is that? Have we got to the end now?
No, sorry. Is Scareglow going to actually be like glowing paint or?
So that's the thing. I like with resin paint and stuff. Obviously that's the gimmick of the toy, and it's like you gotta do it, So I feel like if we paint it in a way where it looks like it's glowing, I'd rather the end result should be the best thing possible, and I don't want to sacrifice good paint for a glow gag. So if I can get the best paint possible with a glow gag, I'll do that. But if the glow gag will compromise the paint for some reason, I'm gonna just.
Because it looks a bit sloppy, doesn't it? The glow paint.
Yeah, it can.
I honestly, I couldn't give a shit for the glowing up thing at all.
Yeah,
as long as it looks as good as it can look like when the lights are on it and when it's on. I'm not interested in the rest of it. I really,
1000% agree. So it's like it's a bonus to me, not a must-have kind of a thing. And then, this is the second line, our 6 scale classic. So we had the He-Man Battlecat shipped earlier, a few months ago, and
fantastic piece, yeah.
Thanks, man. And then we had to do the Skeletor Panther, and their bases complement each other. So He-Man Battlecat are on a section of the drawbridge, and then Skeletor Panther are going up in the Filmation show. You can see there's like a bony ramp thing. So that's like they're coming at each other, meeting at like the Gray Skull. So
awesome. And then just so we get to the end of the Skeletor, we got the last line, which is the Thundercats.
Yeah, dude, I forgot. I'm like, what have we not done yet? Oh yeah, we're only 3 hours in. It's been a blast, though. You guys are great. It's been great talking to you. And obviously, Alex, if any questions pop up, please. And
I've started the questions, so we can go get them at the end. It's okay. I know that Mitchell's been asking 100 times about an Evil Lyn. Is that something you're looking into?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I mean, I think we've announced or talked about we're doing a new He-Man. It's about you don't want to do too many repeat characters in the same year. Like, so,
Yeah.
trying to balance like this one's already done, this one already exists. So He-Man's on our list. I already have a rough pose mock-up for him and rough armor design and a rough base, and made sure he works with Teela and Man-At-Arms and Sorceress really good and complements the Skeletor really good. And then Evelyn is one that's been on the list, but I haven't really dove into her yet. So she's like in the next, like after these 3, she's in the next 5, whether she's going to be in the first, second, third, fourth, or fifth, but she's in the batch for sure. So it's because there's not many females in the He-Man universe. I think people would drop $500 on. So it's like Teela, Sorceress, Evelyn, Snake, Sorcerer, like Teela as the snake goddess or whatever. And then it like if you go into She-Ra territory, it's different because you have like a ton of females there. But in terms of like the He-Man universe, I mean, I don't know if anyone would like, maybe someone would buy Queen Marla as a $500 statue. Maybe, I'm not totally sure, but it gets hard after that. So we just want to spread the females out a little bit so they're not like all at once. We get,
Yeah, exactly. Smart.
So then we go into Panthro and the
first release. Yeah, first release for the Thundercats.
So just one quick question. This is what I was thinking. I forgot to ask you this off camera, so it's going to have to be on camera. With the Sideshow doing the 1/5 line before, is this the match with that or not?
It's I would call it a light match. I would say it's a heavy / light match, not official. Same scale, same idea. Again, like what would Thundercats look like in live action movies or video games or anything like that. So we're calling it Legends, just like we are with the Tweeterhead stuff. But there are things that, looking again back in the past, I didn't want to be like handcuffed to. So like the base, his cat's lair base is more true to the cartoon colors, whereas the Sideshow ones were more gunmetals and dark. We try to make it like grittier, which is cool. But this one we're going for a little bit more of that like light looking, more whimsical sci-fi fantasy feel that I think the Thundercats had, and that makes sure the base rock color matches like the cartoon show as well. And then, just listen to the fan, like collector feedback of the old pieces is like, they had some valid points, some things I didn't agree with. So it's kind of like, what's that balance of like making sure like, hey, we're not just committing to the same stuff just cause, but like, can this be a light continuation? And can we evolve the things that we want to involve without feeling like handcuffed? So
sure.
Same idea, adding silver accents, adding additional details, but we like, Lino, I know a lot of people didn't like the biker shorts. To me, they make sense. I like them, but cool. We raise the shorts up to be more in line with that. And then if we do another character that has a bodysuit, I know people weren't as fond of like Lino having like what looked like thick armor. So we're making them way more svelte. Like, is it armor? Is it Under Armour? So I think we're going, it was on statue form. I think it was the first time someone mentioned this. They're like, hey, the Tweeterhead, like Panthro, doesn't feel as gritty as the He-Man stuff. And why is that? They're both legends. And to me, with He-Man, it's like they're space fantasy barbarians, like gladiators in a way. Yeah. I'd say gladiators is better, not barbarians, but gladiators. And then with Thundercats, I don't think they fit the same thing. They're more like when you watch the intro, I think of them more as like a superhero team or like an Olympic sports superhero team. So how do we make them more svelte, fast looking, and cleaner? Like I don't think Panther would have a ton of battle damage because he's way more like he's just that fast. Like, when I think of like ninjas, like which I think of these as like cat ninjas, they're like in and out, knock everyone out and win. They're not like clanging weapons and swords and stuff like that. It's like I try to capture like that fast, elegant feel. So think of like the He-Man statues is more Star Wars and the Thundercats more is like Star Trek. And I believe they could exist in the same universe. They're just different approaches to like they go to a different costumer and then, different aesthetics a little bit. So,
and also you have the cat element, right? Which is a cat is an elegant creature.
Yeah.
Understand what I'm saying? It prunes itself, it preens itself, it looks after itself.
That's a great. I didn't think of that. There you go. You see Panther just like licking his armor in like a cutscene.
That's it. It's like that. But the point is like
Ryan,
the mentality. They take pride in how they look and how they appear and how they are. They're almost cats are almost above it.
Yeah.
Above you in that way. They're like a bit like, really gonna eat that. They're a bit, you know what I mean? So I sort of think with with your concept and your design in terms of like, that him being shiny and new and looking like he's clean, and you know what I mean? I think that concept works in that way. I definitely agree that the He-Man thing is a little bit more I think it's a bit more sort of like doggy in a way. It's a bit more gritty and a bit more, isn't it? Yeah, it's a bit more like that. The cat, and I always felt that with the cartoons as well. I always felt that they were, quite classy, the Thundercats. They were a classy outfit, classy unit, even to the point where the actresses and actors that played their voices were very well spoken and very eloquent. So I completely get you translating that into statue form. So cool.
And there's just this so early on. So Geo Nakpil, the Panther was actually the first thing he ever worked on for us. So Geo's never done collectibles. I was a huge fan of his work. He's kind of like Geo's an artist that artists look up to. You know what I mean? He's like one of those like the best artists in the industry. Like, oh, Geo Nakpil, and he's also like a really awesome, cool dude. And so when I approached him to work with each other, he was like super into it. Never done collectibles. So and he loves Thundercats. So this is the first thing I worked on with him was the Panther. And then this rough lineup years ago, we announced, hey, Tweeterhead, Thundercats, Legends coming soon. And then there's a licensing hiccup, basically held it back for 3 years. And so Panther was his first, Trapjaw was his second. So it was like crazy to see like Panther coming out like way later, after all this stuff. But yeah, Gio and I wanted to make sure we had like a set. Like, if we're jumping into Panthro, how do the other characters work around it? These are really rough ZBrush maquettes. I just kind of like grayed out just so you don't see, because again, people can be like, why does his armor look so bad? It's like, dude, this is just like rough, block things in, pose it. How do the compositions feel? Can we, again, if people have the sideshow pieces, can these complement those and not take away? So like, can Panther and Tigra work with Lino and Chitara that were done before? And then, the new Chitara, like I want to do a full-on sprint. I know the sideshow one was kind of a running thing, but her top foot was planted, so it looks more like she's going over something. I want this to look like convey like essentially what like Daniel Bell did with the sideshow Flash statue. Just like, oh, that's speed. Like I just want speed captured in this.
Did they ever release that Chitara? Didn't it not make it to release?
They released it. It was the PCS one that never got released.
Ah.
Yeah.
I don't remember that Chitara, man. I have to go find that. I have to check that out.
It definitely came out. Gabriel Gutierrez is just asking why no switch outs with the Panthro portraits or arms.
So portrait, we'd have to get like a seam. So we actually had a seam. I had to Photoshop it out in the gallery because we're gonna fix it in tooling in China. So it's like there's no necklace, there's no any place to clean break it, and we actually did a sculpt test of giving him like a really heavy neck roll and just looked weird on him. So we're just like, you know what? Let's not compromise this thing. And then with the arms, it's like, it was such a specific pose of like this nunchuck pose. And we looked at like tons of Bruce Lee stuff to like do a different pose. It's like, why? Just like, why do it for the sake of doing it when we can make this the best version of this that we can? And we thought about like going from this, like one hand out and him like having the spinning chucks behind him and trying to get that spinning gag. But we just, we're just like, we'd rather get the chain right and that pose right than try to like force something else in there. We talked about a proximity piece, but if we do a proximity piece like Snarf or something else, I think we're just going to offer it as a separate piece like we did with Minion with Hordak. And so this is just a show like the lineup that Geo did. These were all the rough body like things, and obviously super rough, but just to kind of like how big is Panther compared to Lino, how big is Tigra, how bulky is Panther compared to Tigra, the height of Chitara. We're gonna probably completely change her anatomy when we get into sculpting her, and then the kids if we get to Wily Cat. So Geo just did this pro bono, just to be like, he had to do it for himself, and it was great to see. So I just want to show it to people that like, cool. Hey, if we do Lino, you might notice there's some design aesthetic changes already in this that should be reflected where it's not like the logo on his chest, not thick armor, but it's like back down to his belt. So, and it'll be very thin. If you look at like the detail on the belt, even though it's really rough, it very much matches Panthros. So yeah, just want to show people we're thinking about the line as a whole. And we're definitely committed to. Go ahead.
I think Gutierrez's thing about Panthro should have really been phrased as a question, which is, will the future pieces have switch outs, or is it now? No, that's just my take on what he may be saying. I think he's asked it in a way like, why didn't it have it? But I think the right question is, Panthro didn't have it. Is that a trend you will continue, or is that something that you think is just because Panthro's pose was very specific in that regard? I mean, the neck thing is a real issue.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect way to put it. I think it's going to be case by case. Like if there's a good place to break something and there's a good reason to do it, I don't want to do it again, like we talked about earlier. I don't want to do it just to do it. Like if I think it's pretty strong that Lino is going to be the next piece we do. It's kind of it's a tie, but it could be Lino, could be Tiger, could be Mummified Mummer, which I forgot to give you guys art, but we showed concept art for that too. Like the mummy, the pre-transformation ones, he's all gnarly and skinny and hunchback. To get villains in there too, but if the piece really is like, oh, this makes sense, like something we talked about was Lino with the sword straight up. It's a very iconic pose, but in fit scale, it's going to be tall as hell. So make sure we get the base down. Make sure we don't do another Wonder Woman. But then, is there a swap out to help people with their display? So could we do the sword out or his hand back, like he's getting ready to swing it up or something? We're not totally sure what we're going to do. But to me, I don't want to compromise like this iconic summoning of the team thing. So it's like, can we get something that could help people with their display space for sure? So they could have it. And if they don't have like a big shelf to put it on and they only have the small shelf, they could like do this thing. And then when they upgrade, they can, now I can do the full sword extension thing, So yeah, case by case.
All right, let me just run through some of the questions. So, this one's too late now because Chad's already gone. So, question for Chad: How often do you have to stop Dave Igo from dropping spoilers and saying too much, or is he getting better with it these days?
So I would argue Chad's worse than me about this, and we're each other's AA sponsors in that way. We like keep each other in line. We try to make a rule. We broke it with you guys, but we really try to not show or announce anything until the sculpt is mostly done, because anything can happen. We don't want to like over announce things. And Chad's admitted this. He's over shared stuff way too early on, and a lot of stuff's never gotten made. Like he had a hot girl contest for the pose, and everyone's like, "Where's this hot girl you promised us?" And it's come up with a few other things. So Chad's like, "I need to get better at this," and I realize I need to too. But at the same time, you want to get people excited about like, hey, if you buy Panthro, here are the plans for the rest of the line. Not saying, again, anything can change. Like we can't, if Panthro just tanks or the next piece tanks, we can't as a business just force things into existence. If I was Jeff Bezos, had unlimited money, I would do that. But, at the end of the day, you're a business and you have to try and make it a win-win for both the collectors and the business, where you want to be as transparent as you can, but you can't like, cut yourself off at the legs either. So we want to say we have plans for the Thundercats line. We're definitely committed to Panther in the next piece, whether that's one of the three I've discussed or something else. But then if, over time Panther sales suck and the second piece sucks, it's like, well, let's give it a third try. You know what I mean? It's really hard to keep doing.
So stuff. You and Chad are like, NDA sponsors.
That's a great way of putting it. Actually, I'm really good with NDA. So I've had I think one of the craziest things when I was at Sideshow is, I used to, work with licensors a lot. I still do with Chad and Mattel and Warner Brothers and stuff. But like, I've within a 2-month span when I was at Sideshow, I went from reading the Batman vs Superman movie script to Avengers Age of Ultron movie script. And those NDAs were like that thick. And I got to see like the new, like Batman vs Superman, like read everything that happened. And then the Age of Ultron, like the second Avengers movie, everything that happened. And it's like, man, that's hard not to like want to just like shout that out in the universe. Like, do you know what's going to happen? But yeah, I've had to sign some pretty scary NDA shit. And I take that stuff very seriously. But when it's our own stuff, we can spoil our own stuff. Chad's cool with us. you know, trying to
It's only your pie, isn't it?
yeah.
Let me just go through. Any chance of acquiring the Marvel license?
So we had a talk with Marvel at one point. I'm pretty good friends with the head of licensing there. He's a great guy. He's like an older brother to me. So he's always been very
Jesse.
Jesse. Yeah. So he's always been really like, we'll just talk casual. And sometimes he's like, why aren't we working with Tweeterhead? I'm like, I don't know. Do you want to? And we just had that talk of like, what could we do that hasn't been done and doesn't make sense for Tweeterhead? And we just haven't found like other people are making 6-scale statues or 8, like, you know, classic statues.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's saturated and they don't
Saturated,
also
bro.
Marvel doesn't want to have us come onto the scene and like, oh, hey, from their point of view as a company, you might just be taking dollars from this company and giving it to this company, but you know, we're still like making the same amount of money, but we're hurting our partners. And then also the thing that they're very sensitive to, bigger companies, they don't want a bunch of licensees because they're like, they call it like efficiency of like their meeting time. They don't want to have 20 unique meetings every single week. They want to meet with like 6 that are the most meaningful. So if there was an opportunity for Tweeterhead to do something, we could team up with someone like Sideshow that has the license. We've done that before, like the quarter scale DC license at Sideshows for global. So that's why we were able to do Joker on Throne and quarter scale. So if Chad or I ever have a strong idea of like, oh, we'd love to do this, you know, Sideshow's a good friend and partner that we team up with often. Again, like the Myths and Monsters, kind of our line is Myths and Monsters, then they're Frankenstein Monsters, same scale, same aesthetic. If there's a thing where like, oh, I would love to do this. I mean, Venom's my boy. I would love to do this Venom thing. Could we do a Tweeterhead Sideshow team up for this thing? Does it conflict with any of their plans? But right now, there's just Chad was a DC guy growing up, you know, Superpower, Super Friends, all that stuff, and Batman 6. He wasn't as big into Marvel, and then just, you know, we haven't found the right, what is the thing that would make sense?
Avenue,
you know? Yeah. And also, I had 10 years at Sideshow working on Marvel stuff. I feel like I scratched, you know, a bunch of those little things that I want to do, and there are things I didn't get to do I would love to do, and maybe one day I'll be able to. But I'm happy making He-Man stuff right now and helping Chad with DC every once in a while. But if there's something Marvel that makes sense, I'll definitely, you know, we'll talk about it and what's the way to do it.
Who has Hanna-Barbera license? I'm down for a Flintstone statue.
Oh, Hanna-Barbera?
Yeah, Barbera, sorry.
Dude, Hanna-Barbera is Pirates of Dark Water, baby. That'd be the shit. That'd be awesome. I don't know if you guys know Pirates of Dark Water. If you don't know, after this call, look up Pirates of Dark Water intro on YouTube. It's going to change your life. It's the best Hanna-Barbera animation ever. And the writing holds up to this day. It's like that good. And it's all fantasy world stuff. So, yeah, I love it. Gio, you should watch it with your kid. I think you would, if he likes fantasy stuff. If you like,
I have to be careful, man, because like before you know, you boys who don't have kids, you say stupid shit. I remember with Alex, before he had a child, he fucking told me, said to me, he didn't have a baby, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you know, have you seen Castlevania yet? You know the anime thing." And I went, "No," and he said, "Die, yeah." He said, "I think George will like that." I said, "Alex, I swear, are you sure? That's like, isn't that a bit much?" So fucking lucky for me, the night that I had that conversation with him, I went on Netflix. I put the first episode on.
I would never recommend Castlevania to anyone with kids.
This is what I'm saying. I think Georgie was about 3 or 4 years old, and it was like the first fucking episode is when all those people, those Christians, get fucking slaughtered at their church by these massive bats that come down and fucking start ripping them apart. And I'm like within the first 5 minutes that happens, I'm like, how the fuck does he not know this? This is like the start.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Anyway, next question. Any plans for a Trapjaw variant?
Yes. We're gonna do something we're trying to do with some of these pieces is maybe because with He-Man there's such a wide breadth of versions of these characters, like maybe every once in a while try 2 variants off of a main version. Trapjaw was one we were gonna do 2 variants of, but then there's a miscommunication between me, Chad, and the factory, and basically didn't get enough castings to do both. So we had to commit to one, and it's cool. It's very cool. I think some people are really gonna dig it. It might upset some fans or collectors, and I get that too. You can't please everyone, but yes, we have a Trapjaw variant that you might hear about sooner rather than later. So,
where's Snuff?
He's not on. He's actually off screen. Just jumped further than anyone else. But yeah, if we do Lino next, I think it's safe to say Snarf would be kind of like Hordak and Hordak's main, where he wouldn't be an exclusive proxy. He would be a separate proximity thing. So, yeah.
What about Lady Sliver? That was
that's like, I mean, I know they just made like an Origins toy of her, but that's like, she would be a cool female, a snake lady, but we're doing a Medusa in the Myths and Monsters line. I don't even know if we need a lady. She's basically like their Medusa in a way.
Any hope for a 1/5 Legends Batcat and Panther?
So Chad and I have talked about a 5th scale Legends Battle Cat specifically to go like, if we do He-Man, maybe we could do like what PCS did years ago, where it's like, oh, here's He-Man quarter scale, here's Battle Cat quarter scale. So we talked about doing the same thing where not 5th scale He-Man on Battle Cat, but maybe here's He-Man, then here's Battle Cat. So we've talked about it, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's locked in 100,000%, but it's been strongly discussed.
David, Chad, you've already done that, haven't you?
What?
Can you explain the difference in direction between the Master Universe line and the Thundercats? One you had, so the Thundercats looks like it comes off the show, basically.
So it's funny because I got in a huge discussion with a guy who came across pretty hard. He came at me kind of hard about like, Panthro fail, looks nothing like the cartoon. And we actually had it became a good discussion, and I explained. So he thought it was very not what it should be. And then some people think it's a lot more faithful than the He-Man stuff is. But yeah, again, like I try to make like, I actually had this discussion when I was at Sideshow when we were designing Jokers and Batmans to go together, and they would look very different. So people were like, they look like they don't belong together at all. And I'm like, well, dude, Batman, like Bruce Wayne makes his own suit, and then Joker's chaos. Like, I think like they're never going to, they shouldn't look the same. They just shouldn't. They're like two totally different characters. Like, I get style wise, if you make like a cartoony looking Joker, you make a hyper realistic Batman, those might not work together as well. So to me, it's like, so long as the level of hyper realism and style matches, then to me, it's a successful companion. Just, different outfits, different treatments and whatever. But they're both like this. To me, I treat them very much the same with the team about level of realism, detail. It's just like different,
Any plans for return of Superman characters like Cyborg Superman and Eradicator?
That's funny they asked that, because literally as we were showing the slide of Superman Doomsday and talking about the death of Superman, I'm like, dude, Eradicator. I was thinking in my head like how cool it would be to do those busts to go with them, but I didn't want to say it out loud because I'm not sure. Again, like I don't think Chad's the biggest fan of like that specific era, but
he said he wasn't reading comics at that point. Yeah,
I would love. I think Cyborg Superman's like one
I don't even know who that is. Eradicator. Who is that?
He's the Superman with the big sunglasses that came out with like he has like these yellow looking sunglasses. So it's the death of Superman. There's like Cyborg, there's Superboy, Steel, and Eradicator. They're like the 4 replacement Superman. So
they all sound shit.
Yeah. So look at me. I know my DC nerdy stuff,
Good for you, man. I was just a bit like, oh no, that sounds like a bad idea. All of that sounds like a bad idea. And as soon as you said Steel,
Cyborg Superman's cool, yeah.
I saw fucking Shaquille O'Neal again.
My only complaint about Cyborg Superman, where if I could do a Cyborg Superman, and this might be like the Dave Igoism, it just feels a little bit too like half robot, half man with like little patchwork. I would like to see it more blended, where you get like a cybernetic arm, but not like a full cybernetic leg. To me, it's just like, it's weird. I know XM stayed pretty true to like that idea. I think it was XM that made it. It was my buddy Marco Plouffe did the design sculpt for it. He's amazing talent. But I never liked how it's like this weird, like exact, like razor's edge of like, oh, this part's robotic looking, this part's Superman. I'm like, it should just be a bit more integrated. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm going to leave it there anyway, because I mean, we've done 3.5 hours. I think
look at that, I'm wearing you guys down. I'm ready for another 2 hours. Let's do a drinking contest.
Oh, fuck
yeah,
that.
but you fucking idiot. We're 1 a.m. here, you big fucking hairy fool. What's about it? What time is it where you are?
It's
what are you drinking? Like, you're drinking your new energy drink before.
What are you drinking?
I should have. It was an Arizona iced tea. It's not an energy drink. So. I know it's late. You guys have kids. You have all this
stress. What time is it there?
5:30 p.m. Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here, you energy. Fucking let's go another couple of hours.
It was great talking to you guys, and it's been a lot, talking to Alex, and I think I was talking to Alex before you, Gio, just about eventually coming on doing an interview at some point, and even when I was at Sideshow, I think we might have loosely talked about doing it at some point, but yeah, it's been great finally connecting with you guys more formally and share some Tweeterhead plans and kind of, not only behind the scenes is show people hopefully what we think is cool stuff we're making in the future, but just why Chad and I do what we do, and why we take our time with pieces, why sometimes people might think the DC 1/6 scale line is abandoned, is just because Chad's reworking things and make sure it's the best it can be, hopefully. And sometimes people don't agree with it, and that's fine, but at the end of the day, I think when you look back on your collection, you don't think about that piece took forever to finally show up, or that piece went up for sale a month later. That piece, you just, what's the quality of the piece you have on your shelf, and that's what.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, it's been a great, to catch up with you and Chad as well. And we don't really, we don't really like the interview sort of thing. It's what we call it, just a chat, because the truth is, if the camera, me and Alex are very guilty of forgetting that the camera's on, and we just talk. This is how we sort of talk in general. It's just how we are, so that you can't, with an interview, that's never the case. With an interview, it's always, I don't know, there's something very mildly uncomfortable with being interviewed.
I've conducted a few interviews myself, and I agree with you. That's whenever I've done it, I've moderated a couple discussions too. You don't want to lose that organic, genuine thing to it. So if when I was talking with Alex earlier about hey, the order of what we could do, he's like, dude, Gio hates scripted shit. I'm like, no, not scripted. Just if we do this, instead of saving all the new reveals for the end, let's do new reveals after each segment. I think would be cool. And
but that's just good. That's good planning. That's fine. But it's
interviews or discussions like this. I just love it when there's just a loose roadmap of what you want to talk about, and that's
exactly.
Yeah, no,
for sure.
Great. So
also, as well, it's I remember once I got invited to an interview, and the guy said to me, don't wear a suit, and that was just what the fuck. He was just I don't want you to wear a suit. That's my one request for this interview that we're going to have. Don't come, and the psychology of it is that that's like an armor, you walk into it, your mind follows how your body is looking. So you start all of a sudden, getting focused and and he just wanted to see me sort of relaxed. And it was a bit okay.
That's cool.
It really fucked me up, because I was like, what the fuck do I wear?
It's funny you said that, because when I was I'm known as the shorts black t-shirt. I don't know if I'm known for that, but I only wear black t-shirts and shorts and my Sanuk shoes, which are basically sandals with a cover on it. And I love it because I want to feel comfortable and all the time, because I feel anytime I overdress up or anything, I feel it's just there's this tight rigidness. And it was funny at Sideshow, when I would come into work with blue jeans, normal shoes, and a watch on, they were like, oh, Dave, you got a meeting today, an important, with Marvel or DC, because that was me dressing up. I still had a black t-shirt, but it'd be blue jeans and shoes, important business, Dave. I love that. That was my it's so stupid.
Just one last question there, though. Yeah. Does the Shishula, does that require a license?
Cthulhu is public domain, so anyone can do Cthulhu. H.P. Lovecraft is amazing, and that's a great thing about doing things like monsters and things. If you're not doing universal type, they're public domain. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is for anyone, so you can really do your own take on it. Cthulhu is the same thing. Bigfoot, same idea. Dinosaurs, dragons. There's lots of. So going back to what you were saying earlier, if you guys got 2 more minutes, if that's cool. But when new people are looking to enter the arena and do something, they always want to go for a Marvel license or DC or something they know. And they're like, no, but I have the resource, I have the money. And dude, Marvel doesn't care if you have those. Those are important. Yeah. But it's what's your track record? What have you done? What's your fulfillment to customers is huge, because that's the only way you really get money, because people can give you money. I think Anthony was talking about this last week too, but same idea we do at Tweeterhead is like, we can get all this pre-order money for a statue, but until we ship it, it's like, that's temporary money. Because worst case scenario, literally every single person could cancel their thing, and the only thing you keep is that non-refundable deposit. Everything else you have to get back. But if anyone really, my advice, if anyone's getting that legit statue making, not unlicensed stuff, start with public domain characters. You can Frankenstein's monster, or like dragons, dinosaurs, fantasy warrior chicks, whatever. It's like, make up your own thing. Make something that like is so cool people would want to buy it. Just like, I really am not anti-competition or anti other people making what we're making. I just like, if you really want to make statues and be a creative force behind it, you have money, you have ideas, you have art friends you can do this stuff with, come up with like, be a part of making the next He-Man, the next Marvel, the next DC, whatever, the next Ninja Turtles. Create something cool that people want, and you can start with a statue. You don't need to start with a comic book or a story. When I was at Sideshow, I got one of my favorite things I ever got to work on was the Dragon Slayer. It was like a Sideshow original chick.
Yeah, beautiful piece.
There's no way to say this without sounding braggy, and I hate it, but that was like my idea, and I worked on with this artist, Ian McDonald. It started out, the idea was, hey, can we just make a fancy barbarian chick, just a generic one? I'm like, yeah, I'll take that challenge. But then I'm like, what's the angle to make this so cool? People have to have it. It makes it a little bit more unique. And I was like, dragons are cool. Let's make a dragon armor chick and a dead dragon on the ground and give her a dragon slayer sword. And, that opened my mind to want to create a whole new world of stuff. So I know people are a fan of Superman. There's a million Superman bootleg statues out there and stuff. But if anyone wants to really be a creator, create something. Create something totally new. Think of like, what gets you excited? Take this idea, that idea, mash them together, bring your own little twist to it, make something new, like do it. Be a part of that. Be a part of something fun and awesome and exciting, not like black. I don't know, that's my spiel. If anyone out there really wants to be a creator and get their toes in the door, that's how you can do it. Make a couple of those, ship them, and then take that to Marvel as your portfolio. Be like, look, I've made these 3 or 5 statues. Did it legitimately, did it with this factory. Here's my sales. Here's all this stuff. And then they're gonna be like, all right, cool. You've made stuff. Now you can come into the party. You can't just like wish yourself to the front of the line or whatever, So, that's my spiel. That's it. The end. Sorry to take your time. I know you're bored with me. Talk to you,
man. It was great to catch up with you, bro, and thank you very much for being on. We definitely need to do it a little bit more regular. So, we've got to give mad love to David and Chad for coming on, man, and representing and sharing us some nice exclusive with Tweetheads. But it's not just about that. It's about catching up, helping promote the company. They're doing some fantastic work. I have a lot of their pieces in my collection. So, we want nothing but good things for them. So, support them, follow them, check out their groups, check out their bits and pieces, follow them on all the socials. Make sure that you're keeping up to date with what they're doing, and we'll catch you next week.
Thanks for plugging our social and everything, Gio. I was supposed to do that and I didn't, so thank you for making a follow.
No problem, man. Anytime. Do you want to tell everybody where you are, how they can follow you?
Tweeterhead @Tweeterhead on Instagram, Facebook Tweeterhead, tweeterhead.com. We have Twitter. I don't think we really, or X. We're on there too, but I think Instagram and Facebook are the main 2 ones where we have a Tweeterhead Facebook collectors group as well, run by Matt Wessel, who runs our social media stuff.
Yeah, you're gonna be saving your ass now.
Yeah, there you go. And there he is. Yeah, @Tweeterhead. And we're pretty active on Statue Forum too, and I'm active somewhat in the RaddTitan group as well. So you can find us anywhere, but the main social channels. So
yeah, we were removed from Statue Forum, but that's a whole other conversation.
Let's not.
Oh man,
Let's not spoil it. Anyway, God bless, and thanks very much for being with us this week. We'll catch you next week. We'll be catching up with the news and running through some bits and pieces then. So peace.
Thanks, guys.
Bye bye.